Freaking out, man. You can't handle the truth. You can't handle the truth.
What do all men in power want? More power.
My name is Gianluca Zanna. I was an Italian by birth, and I became an American by choice. Our lives and freedoms are in danger. This is not a drill. If you're listening to this broadcasting, you are the resistance.
All systems go.
Welcome to Love, Guns, and Freedom.
We're not afraid.
Here we go, guys. You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom with Lucas. Another Sunday, another show, and another goal. My goal is very simple. I would like to have in every episode of this broadcasting the opportunity to meet, first of all, people that really inspired me to learn, to wake up in this new awakening, to save this republic called these United States, and also to share their experience, their information, their struggle, their journey with you. Hopefully they can inspire you, but more important, I hope they can give you the information that every one of you now, every one of us now, has to do something. You know, when I was in Los Angeles, I came from Italy, 1998, I still remember, was the fall, 1998, October. I came with a visa. I didn't jump the fence. I went to the embassy, and I was very pleased. I was very excited, you know, and I was very, humble at the same time to have the chance to be here. And I realized immediately, even in Los Angeles, even if I was living a little bit kind of a clueless at the time, that America was under attack. And I learned immediately, you know, even as a fresh immigrant, I said, wow, sometimes I get lost in some part of town. I don't even understand where I am. I thought I was in America. I didn't think I was in China or I was in Mexico. You know, and don't get me wrong, you know, we're all from somewhere, and that's fine. But the first thing I wanted to do, even when I came to America, even with my limitations in my grammar and my English, I wanted to try to speak English at least, even with my own faults. And I realized many people didn't want to do that. Or at least you were almost an enemy, even if you were trying to do it. It may sound extreme. I don't think so. Unfortunately, history is proving us that we were right. And right there in Los Angeles, I learned this country is under attack. And the first symptoms I could see was the illegal immigration. It wasn't an immigration issue. It was an invasion issue. It was more than just people looking for jobs. No, unfortunately, it was a way created by the globalists, this elite, that they're working behind the scenes to destroy this republic, the last bastion of freedom, the last country that really they need to destroy to create on its ashes the new world order. That was what I learned. Among the people that really inspired me in this struggle to understand the danger of illegal invasion was one man. That, you know, it's funny, everybody's trying to say, hey, you are a racist. They call me also an activist. You know, I was featured in the Southern Poverty Law as an activist, and I was laughing. I wish I was born here. I was even an activist because I was born in Italy. But this guy, you know, guess what? I don't think they can call him a racist because also he has a race that normally people like to paint, you know, the minority. I don't believe in minority. I don't believe in majority. I believe that we're all Americans at the end of the day. But this is a great black man that I'm really proud to call my brother in freedom. His name is Tate Hayes. Tate, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, sir. Definitely. Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. And I wanted to thank you. You know, we never really talked much, but I was with you some of the rallies, and you always inspired me when I started to learn what you were doing and what you've been doing in your life on this planet. But before I go ahead and introduce you with some questions, why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners to let you little bit yourself know who you are, what is your background, what you've been doing all this life on this planet, what you've been doing, who you are.
Okay, I'll try to capitalize that for you.
Yes.
First of all, I want to say thank you very much for inviting me to come on your broadcast and share with your listeners. It's a real honor because that's what I want to do. I want to share what I have learned with as many people as possible. I'm an activist for the homeless. I became homeless on purpose 30 years ago this year, living on the sidewalks in places like that for 8 years on the sidewalks, and then another 13 years in what we call the Dome Village. You can see the Dome Village if you like and see what that is. It was a special, innovative homeless shelter project called Dome Village. You can go to domevillage.us, domevillage.us. You can see that. But I became homeless on purpose so that I can understand it. I can feel it, smell it, taste it, understand it, see where it comes from, and examine or investigate whether there is a resolution to the matter. And I did. I found after many years of protest, demonstration, lobbying, and just talking to people and working hard and smartly, I've learned. I know what to do now. I'm very confident. I think I'm the nation's foremost homeless activist. At the same time, and that's because I have a plan. I've done something nobody in this country in its history has ever done. Left the home to go deliberately live with the poorest of the poor. Wow. To show, this is what Jesus Christ did, right? He went and he became homeless, and he said, go into the highways and byways, those are homeless people, and compel them into my house. And of course, Gandhi did the same thing. He became an untouchable to touch the untouchables. Yeah. So, touch them. So, I figured I'll do the same thing, and it has paid off, and that's why I think I'm the nation's foremost activist, because I do have plans and answers to it. I'm also, before that, a civil rights activist. And it is my objective to bring about the healing of this chattel slave race wound in this country. They call America a nation of immigrants, which it is to a certain degree, but it's it's a half-truth, because my people, we're not immigrants. We so-called African Americans, we black people, what I call the descendants of chattel slaves and Jim Crow survivors. We did not ask to come into this country, but immigrants purchased us, brought us here to serve immigrants. And when I hear the president and other people in the media and whatnot say that America's a nation of immigrants and we all come from somewhere else, as immigrants, and that's not true, because if that is true, I want to know who are we. And people say, well, I have pride in my immigrant heritage. People should have pride in their immigrant heritage. Absolutely correct. But what pride do I have as a descendant of chattel slaves? And it's almost like it's almost like we have been psychologically genocide in the minds of the American people. One time I was in Washington, D.C. at the White House, and there was about 70 black people in the room meeting with Condoleezza Rice. And she got up and she said, as she heard Mr. President, Mr. Bush say, this is the nation of immigrants. And so I raised my hand to speak to her, and she called upon me, and I told her how much I love her and appreciate her and defend her and also things like that. And I said, but ma'am, when you say that this is the nation of immigrants, it's rather offensive. It hurts me, because what am I? What are you? I said that, and I explained to her. She says, you're right about that. This is the nation of two great people, one slave and one free, and we must never forget that and must work to resolve that. So as a civil rights activist, I want to bring healing in the country between us. And it's not a matter of black, if you know the history. It's a matter of immigrant people and the non-immigrant people. And later I'll tell you more about that. But there has to be healing between us if this nation is to save. Most immigrants, no fault of your own, most immigrants, when they come to the United States, they say they're coming looking for the American dream. But they really don't understand or know what the American dream is. In fact, if immigrants in other countries knew what the American dream really is, probably a lot of them would not come here.
Please, I want to learn, what is the American dream, according to Ted Hayes?
Well, according to history, the American dream. Well, let me just say this first of all, before I go there. One of the things that, should the President of the United States finally hear what I'm saying and ask me, okay, loudmouth, what do you think we should do about the problem or the challenge of the black people and the white people, i.e. the immigrants and the slaves? I said, well, the first thing we need to do, Mr. President, is cost you no money. And every embassy, U.S. embassy throughout the country, along with regular history of what they're about to enter into, every candidate to be a citizen of the United States must understand the Civil War, what that is, what it means. Understand that and the people around whom the Civil War was fought. And when people understand that, and they come to this country with that in mind, they will understand the true American dream. Because what is portrayed as the American dream right now, which is erroneous, is that you come to America for a better lifestyle. You come to America to get education, to have a family, to own a home, to become famous. I'm living the dream, they say. That's not why you come to America. Those things are consequences of coming to America. The first thing we must do when we come to America, we must help to fulfill the dream that one day America will rise up and live out its true meaning of its true creed, that all men are created equal, etc. You see, folks, when this country was born in 1776 on July the 4th, when we broke away from the British Crown, the British English Empire, we inherited not only the land and the goods and wonderful things about America, these 13 colonies, unfortunately the destruction of the Native Americans, but we also inherited the institution of chattel slavery. And the founding fathers, if you read the Declaration of Independence, go back and read it slowly, it says that God basically is the central figure of the Declaration of Independence, the first law of our land. And they said in that Declaration of Independence that God created all men equally and endowed them all with certain alienable rights, and that among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, meaning property. Unfortunately, when the Founding Fathers was railing against Mother England, a Judeo-Christian nation, about them being slaves to the crown, they hypocritically were holding other human beings, Americans, as living human property, slaves.
Yeah.
That is a contradiction in the Declaration of Independence. It's a contradiction in who and what America is, and it is a slap and an offense in the face of God. Now, I believe, from what I have studied, the Founding Fathers said that they would end slavery, and they did in 1889. As far as more ships coming into the country, they stopped that. And they said eventually they will free the slaves. Well, they didn't. So Thomas Jefferson said, if we do not rectify the issue of slavery and its generational aftermath, God, who is just, will punish this country. And sure enough, in 1860, the Civil War, 1861, the Civil War began. Immigrants of the South, American immigrants of the South, and American immigrants of the North killed each other, young, white, innocent white boys and men killed each other over this matter of black people as slaves in this country. Abraham Lincoln, halfway through the Civil War, came to understand that God brought this scourge upon this country because of slavery. And when he issued the Emancipation Proclamation declaring that these people shall be free according to the Declaration of Independence, that's when the favor of God came upon the Union, and they won the war, and the country remained the United States of America. Unfortunately, folks, after that war, when when people around the world, particularly out of Europe, looked across the ocean and saw, wow, look at what America is. They just fought a war with each other to elevate people who were slaves. Wow, if they could do that for slaves, imagine what they'll do for me. So I'm going to America. And as you notice, after the Civil War, we had this incredible boom in immigration in the country. And the immigrants came from Ireland, from England, from Scotland, Germany, Italy, and they came here. Unfortunately, folks, what happened, though, because the immigrants did not understand what the Civil War was about, they came, they got the jobs, they got housing over those of who were the slaves, upon whose back the nation of immigrants was built. The slaves can get housing, the slaves can get education, the slaves are being lynched by immigrants. People who came here, they joined the Ku Klux Klan, and they joined that effort of suppressing the freed slaves. What the immigrants could have and should have done, but they didn't know any better, they should have said, wait a minute, this is not the America I come from. I'm leaving a land of oppression, a land where my government puts people down and robs us of our freedom. I come here and I see this and I'm a part of this. I cannot associate myself with this any longer. I love this country, but I want this country to be what it says it's to be. I'm going to speak up about this and say, hey, America, this is not what I came here for. And unfortunately, sir, because that did not happen, the Jim Crow laws of racial segregation lasted for 99 years, and finally they lifted them in 1964. But the damage was done. Yeah. The damage was done.
Ted, let me say something, Ted.
And now, just to finish this off.
Yes.
And now, what the immigrant people are doing in this country, on the political right and left, is they are allowing foreigners to come into this country illegally. As you said it earlier, it's an invasion, and they're coming in the name of my people's civil rights, and they're now saying that their babies who are born here are citizens based on the 14th Amendment, which is my birth certificate, and we are about to be destroyed. And if we do not rise up as a nation and fix this, God will destroy the United States of America.
I understand what you're saying. And by the way, the 14th Amendment, unfortunately, you don't even need to be a lawyer to read it. I mean, the jurisdiction of thereof, even a wop like myself that doesn't know really much, never studied the English, I understand that. The problem is this is what exactly they're using it. They need to destroy the fiber of this republic, having the opportunity, giving the opportunity to an unlimited number of people coming from normally countries that they don't understand the basic foundation of a republic, where people are supposed to have inalienable rights. Instead, we are getting people from democracies, mostly socialist democracies, where people, the mob, can be directed using the brainwashing of the media for an agenda. The agenda is destruction of freedom, liberty, and property rights, of course, individual rights. So this is part of the plan. I have just a little observation, and I'm sure that probably we have maybe I don't say difference of opinion. I'm just be studying history from like almost an external person, because I wasn't born here. I never really lived the drama that you're going through as a black American or as a part of this country with this racial issue. I was in Italy all my when I grew up. But when I was studying history, when I came here, and I tried to go a little deeper than just what the history book gave me, the issue of the Civil War, according to my learning experience, it wasn't just about racism. Because what I see, there was a lot of big economics dispute. There was a lot of big economic warfare. And also there was also a big important thing. There was about state rights. But don't get me wrong, I understand that the slavery was alive and well. The only thing is, I don't think that was the only reason. Because unfortunately, after the Civil War was won by President Lincoln, supposedly supposed to be advocating for freeing the slave. I see that, like you said before, Rosa Parks was still, get arrested, so many years later. So things really didn't change till recently. But regardless, we have a problem. You're right. We got to start to understand that right now, I don't care if you're black, I don't care if you're white, I don't care if you're orange. We are all potential slaves because we are losing these rights, and we are going to become losing also this republic, all of us. And
well, let me share with you something.
Yes, please.
Yes, the Civil War on the surface started out based on economics, and the economics was the North was an industrial center. Okay, the Industrial Revolution.
Yes. The
South was agrarian, agricultural society, and they needed the slaves, and slavery in the South was a multi-billion-dollar industry, and the North also benefited from it because, as quiet as people want to say, well, the North wasn't involved. Yes, the North was involved because they were buying textiles and so forth from the South. Okay, all that cotton was king, tobacco and rice. States' rights was, we have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as the Declaration of Independence declares. And our happiness is these slaves. If you take away our slaves, we lose our happiness. And as a state, we have a right to fight you. Okay? That's the bottom line. That's the truth, right? But then, so they went to war with each other. And I was just in Charleston, South Carolina a couple of days ago, where the war actually started, doing some research down there.
Yes.
And the war started, and no one wanted to admit that it was slavery. Well, finally, Abraham Lincoln, let me read something to you, what he said in the second inaugural address. He said, both parties deprecated the war One of them would make war rather than let the nation survive, and the other would accept war rather than let it perish, and the war came. 1/8 of the whole population were colored slaves, not distributed generally over the Union, but localized in the southern part of it. These slaves constituted a peculiar and powerful interest. All knew that this interest was somehow the cause of the war. You see, so America came to that understanding, and see, what we have forgotten in this country. That's why I said you need to understand the Civil War. Our country no longer has a moral backbone to do the truth and to enforce our laws. One of the things that the illegal aliens say, particularly coming from the Hispanic Latino community from south of the border, these people say to the traditional white Anglo-English-speaking people who run the country, the dominant race, they say, we're allowed to come into your country illegally. And the white man in this country says, no, you're not. You're breaking the law. You're breaking international law. You can't do that in any country. We can't do that in Mexico or Guatemala, El Salvador, Nicaragua. And they say, well, you are a racist. And the white man goes, really? Well, how am I a racist? I'm just telling you, this is the law. And they say, well, look at my skin color. You're treating me the way, look at my skin color. You are treating me the way you treat the blacks. And so the white man, who is already suffering from a long extended guilt complex, caves in because he knows that his business with the blacks is not yet finished in this country. So he gives in and lets these guys come along. The Muslims come here, and they say, I can pray 5 times a day. I can do whatever I want to do. I know you guys are scared of us. You're supposed to be scared of us. We're going to do what we want to do. And the white man says in this country, no, you cannot do that. That would, if you put up a loudspeaker and you pray 5 times a day, you're going to disturb the Christians and the Jews and the Hindus and other people. And the Muslim says, then you are a racist, white man. And the white man says, well, how am I a racist? I'm just defending what's right here. He says, well, look at my skin color. I'm from the Middle East, and I'm a minority. And the illegal aliens from south of the border says, we're a minority, and you're treating us like you treat the blacks. And so the white man cowers. I'm trying to get this country who call them, at least those who call themselves patriots. If you want to defeat these invaders, you must recognize that those 740,000 young, innocent white boys, north and south, died for this issue. And if you allow for the illegal aliens to come in here and take that from the blacks, for which those 740,000 innocent white boys gave their lives for, then you'll lose the country. But if you stand up to the illegal aliens, you stand up to the Muslims, no matter what they call you, you say, I am fighting for the memory of those boys who died in the Civil War, that this union might exist, that you want to come here and live in, enjoy, and destroy. You do that, we win the fight. Because the Hispanics, the Latinos, the Muslims, the Asians, no one can argue with the fact that you're not just defending black people, you're defending those boys who died in that war because of black people. You get the moral high ground. And this is what our leaders are lacking. Mr. Trump lacks it. All the leaders and the Republicans, they all lack this understanding.
I understand. Now, this is important. I wanted to hear your opinion on this issue. And I have another question, a couple of things, first of all. First of all, there's been a big debate, and there was this big propaganda, in my opinion, about the removal of the Confederate flag. Coming from somebody from like myself, that probably, I didn't live in first-hand this. For me, that was an historical flag that has nothing to do anymore with racism. It's about history of this country. People may not agree or not, but I don't think the removal was right. What is your position as a black man, as black American, about the removal, for example, in the state, I think, of Georgia, wherever it was, I forgot, maybe West.
It was in Charleston, South Carolina.
South Carolina, excuse me, South Carolina. But all this propaganda, especially also through the commercial businesses, that Amazon removed all these flags, you couldn't buy anymore the flag. What do you think about that? What is your position on that issue? I
think it was horrible. It was horrible because it is history. It's a history we should never forget.
Exactly.
In fact, some of these people want to tear down the statues and rename streets. And if you do that, you need to also then tear down the Washington Monument, change the name of Washington, D.C., because George Washington actually held slaves, 100 some slaves he had. Thomas Jefferson's memorial would have to be destroyed. People who think in that logic are not well.
No, I understand.
Maybe there's a problem with the flag flying over the state property. Maybe, I don't know. But people should not try to villainize the Confederate flag. That flag was the flag of patriotic young white boys who was fighting for the Declaration of Independence and for this country. They may have been wrong,
and they were also
but they
black.
weren't fighting to keep slavery. They were not fighting to keep slavery.
And they were also
fighting
black
for their country, their state rights.
Ted, they were also black people, black boys that were fighting in the battle. I mean, not
There
just
were
white.
black boys who were fighting also in the Southern Confederacy as well.
Yeah, on both sides,
Yes.
you know. But,
Yes.
you know, this is my humble opinion, you know, try to understand, coming from another country, all this, struggle that started since the beginning. You know, I studied a little bit of history, and I realized that, unfortunately, humanity, you know, no matter which civilization, they always been there is always somebody that wants to try to dominate another one. You know, I don't care if they're the Romans or the Greeks or the Egyptians. Slavery is started since the beginning of humanity. There was always some bastard out there that had more power, had more guns or more weapons, and wanted to use this force to coerce somebody else. And unfortunately, you know, this has been part of human condition. People forget, you know, coming from, at least for what I have studied, wasn't just an American problem, you know. At least in America was addressed for the first time even in a document that, of course, wasn't fulfilled, like you said, you know, the Declaration of Independence, you know, they all men are created equal. Yeah, they put it in writing, but they could not complete it all the way they wanted it, because otherwise this union would never did happen. But at the same time, people forget that meanwhile, around the world, like for example, even right now, in many Muslim countries, slavery is still okay. So, don't get me wrong, what happened to America and to the black people, I think it was terrible. But at the same time, this has also happened before to white people, like the Irish slave. And it happened, of course, to other civilizations. So it is not just an American problem. I think it's been a human race problem since the beginning. And, of course, in America it was probably the most evident, because we had the Declaration of Independence and a constitution that almost was conflicting all these principles. But at the same time, also, that's why I always say, the point is, when you become weak, when you are disarmed, that's exactly when you allow somebody else to rule you. That's why I say one thing in my humble experience in this country. Slaves are never armed. I am not a slave. That's the bottom line. And that's why I think all these gun laws that we have in now today to face as gun restrictions, they were all some sort of almost a consequence of gun laws that were trying to limit the right of black people to defend themselves. What do you think about
that? Was the original reason for getting rid of the guns? Absolutely.
Yes, I mean, as a black person, you know that the first people that wanted to target after the Civil War, even before, I mean, they didn't want to have black people with guns. That would be very bad. Like the Romans, if you were a slave under the Roman Empire, you cannot have gun unless the master give it to you just for the purpose to maybe go fight somebody else, and then you come back, the gun goes back into the armory. So, what do you think about this? You know, the fact that the slavery problem, it is not just an American problem, it's a human race problem. Don't you think that?
Yes, that is absolutely true. In fact, it's not even a racial problem. And this particular round of slavery proves that. However, the difference between the kind of slavery that happened in the United States, the kind of slavery that happened in the United States was quite a bit different than the slavery that the world has experienced throughout history. And we were more like a living human property. We were considered less than human. There was a whole psychology that went with it. And you see today that black people, these former slaves or descendants of slaves, they're still going through a very deep psychosis around what happened to them generations ago. But however, this is interesting too, though. There's a myth out there that the white people in this country, the Jews and the Christians, from Spain and Portugal, beginning with them, and then the British and the other European countries, that they invaded Africa, captured these people, and enslaved them. That is not true at all. Mm-hmm. What happened was that Muslims had been enslaving us and shipping us out to the Middle East through the Sahara Desert. They saved between 18 to 30 million Africans were marched across the Sahara Desert into the Arab and Middle Eastern countries, and that 70% of the people died in the desert. Horrible thing. Then, and that was from 700 AD to 1400 AD. And then in 1400 AD, over on the west coast of Africa, the Muslims, along with the African leaders and merchants, began to ship slaves, put them on the slave ports, and put them on the ships to send them over to the Americas. Now, that's like 13 million people there.
Wow.
The Muslims were involved. Black people had a direct hand in that, not white people. Mm-hmm. The mistake that the white Christians and Jews made was they disobeyed the Bible and fell for the love of money. They sought profit, and they bought slaves. Mm. And, of course, now, generations later, you're paying for that mistake. However, the beautiful thing about the white Americans, more than any other people in the history of the world, this is the first time that a people went to war with itself over the existence of another people. You understand that? Mm-hmm. That is a very noble thing that they did. Yeah. It's a wonderful thing. There's been revolutionary wars. There's been wars where slaves fought to free themselves. There's been all kinds of different wars. But never has there been such a war as that. In fact, the 740,000 that died in that war, it is more than all the wars that America has fought combined.
Yes.
That's how important this point is. That's why I said to you, if you're going to fight illegal immigration, you're going to fight the Muslims, you're going to make the socialists get out, you're going to make the elected officials obey the law and enforce the law, you've got to understand the purpose of the Civil War.
Ted, I have a question for you. Try to have this I like this conversation with you. First of all, it seems like a stupid question, but I like to ask, who created the federal government? I mean, according to your experience and to history.
What do you mean, who created the federal government?
I mean, it's almost a stupid question, but I was going to make a point. The point is the states, the independent colonies, sat down, and they created the federal government.
Federal government, right.
Perfect. So it's like they are, let's say, the masters. You want to use this in this word, the slave master, okay? They were the masters. Right. They were the creators, okay?
Right.
So the federal government was a child of these 13 colonies.
Right.
Now, they had to sit down, and by free will, they decided to join the union. Correct. And
right.
That was by free will.
Well, they created the union.
Exactly. They created the union. Then, of course, we have different states in the future. In history, they joined the 50 states. That's fine. Now, they had, according to what I studied, always that right as creators to leave the union anytime they wanted. Is that true or not? Is that correct?
No, I don't think so. No, that's why they created the union. That's why they created the federal government, to keep them together. Otherwise, you'd have chaos. You'd have 50 independent states. It looked like Europe, frankly, and it can't work. And we've seen Europe can't work like that. The only reason why Europe has survived their divisiveness over there is because the United States, after World War II, went over there and rebuilt the whole country, saved it, and rebuilt the whole thing.
Ted, I have only one question. Focusing on this,
Sure.
It sounds to me like something based on force and coercion. After all, if I want to join something because I'm going to be led by example or by, the principle that we believe. For example, right now, let's say, the state of Virginia, okay, was one of the founders of the union of this.
Right.
And at that point, they realize, sorry, this is something that I don't want to be part, because the principle that you have of, let's say, the Republican principle, anything, I just disagree. So at that point, what I found disturbing, in my opinion, when we have to keep people together, not by example or by living the proof of the principles that we started and created this republic, but then only by coercion. And the same things could be today. At this point, there is no more free will. And if there is no free will, I call this tyranny. Is this coming from outsider? I'm not trying to say what is right or what is wrong, but I never want to be led by coercion, especially when the point is, if I'm an independent sovereign state, and I'm not bothering anybody else, I should be left to even have the free will to make mistakes.
But you're not allowed to. But law is law. You cannot have anarchy. We are not civilized enough as human beings to live in anarchy. Anarchy is the best way to live, but we're not civilized enough. So therefore, we have the law. It works like the Damocles sword. The law will not interfere in your daily concourse of life unless you begin to become uncivil. Then you, of your own volition, bring the law.
Ted.
It's like in the black community. Okay, we don't want the police to come into the community, right? Well, and I tell them, if you don't want the police to come into the community, stop doing the uncivil behavior towards one another that draws the police. So the founding fathers of the 13 colonies, clearly they understood we need a central government. Okay. We need a policeman in our midst. We need someone like that. And if it wasn't for the federal government, I would still be a slave.
No, I understand that, but the point is another one, though. Let's say the state of Texas, the former Republic of Texas, okay? I read the Constitution. I read also the agreement. When they joined the Union, they still have the right to succeed if they want to. That was part of a law. That's a contract. How did
Well, they do not. Obviously, they do not have the right to succeed because, I mean, they can try if they want to, but it's not going to work.
Because there is force and coercion.
You got to remember, and if you do succeed, what you're saying is to hell with the slave people.
Forget about the slaves. Now I'm talking about we're even beyond the slaves issue.
What I'm saying to you, see, all these things are interlocked. It's like a spider web. If you pull on one strand, the whole web moves. It's all interlocked. It's contiguous. Texas can't pull out. If Texas pulls out, it destroys me. You see, I am more than a citizen of California or Georgia or Texas or Arizona. I, being a descendant of the slaves, I am a federal citizen. I am a citizen of the federal government. Okay. Therefore, I can go to any state without that state oppressing me in any kind of way. You see, go back to the 14th Amendment, because that's the center of this whole debate. The 14th Amendment, let me get it for you right quick here. The 14th Amendment says that all persons, Section 1, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. That is speaking specifically to the freed slaves, no one else. Jurisdiction. When the colonies were under British rule, we, as living human property, was under the jurisdiction of England and the British Crown and the English Crown. We were their living human property. When the United States came into existence, we automatically, more than any other people in the country, because of the way we came into the country, we were automatically transferred into the jurisdiction of the United States. Therefore, to this day, because of our socioeconomic political condition in the country, we are still under that special jurisdiction and protection of the federal government of the United States.
Okay.
That's why when people say they want to get rid of the 14th Amendment or alter the 14th Amendment, that is a direct attack upon me and my people, because that is our birth certificate.
Well, this is, I like this show because, as I said, in this show, when I bring guests, I have, first of all, completely freedom of speech and everything. We don't need to agree on everything. And even, of course, there's a lot of things that I agree with my friend Ted Ace. On this issue, almost by accident, I started to touch it, and I'm very glad because there's something that, we have a little bit difference of opinion. My humble way I studied history, for me, the moment that the 14th Amendment was created was almost like now we all slaves. We all became slaves and subject of the United States. We used to be this United States in our Constitution. Instead, when we go back now to the 14th Amendment, we go back to a corporate America that is being recreated with a different congressional act, and they call it the United States. As I said, I understand every state have different laws. I look at this like, the states the independent sovereign states that also we have in the Bill of Rights, in the 10th Amendment, the state has that power of independence in the sense that they can have power and authority beside the laws or beside the constitution in the Constitution. My point is one, though. When we have a situation of coercion and force, like, for example, we were talking about Texas, the Republic of Texas, where exactly, and I know because I've been studying that part, when they joined the Union, they had their right to succeed. Now, probably, as you say, you're right, with the coercion of, after the example of Abraham Lincoln, nobody can succeed anymore, even there was the right, even during the colonies, by the way, according to different historians, the 13 colonies, the 13 states had the right to succeed, because they created their union and they were able to live if they wanted to. This is not the mafia, it's supposed to be some sort of a free will.
But you see, again, once again, that whole philosophy, where you're coming from, that is the personal American dream ideal that I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. That's where I want to live, the way I want to live, and I don't want no one to tell me how to live. That is not the American dream. You got it mixed up. Have you ever studied, folks? Have you ever looked at the Civil Rights Act of 1866, ratified in 1868, with the 10 sections? Have you looked at that at all, sir?
Not recently, but I can go back. Tell me.
You need to go back. When you go to my website,
yes,
you'll see it there, tedhayes.us. Mm-hmm. Scroll down, and you'll see all my positions on immigration, and I talk about this very point. And I point out something called the Civil Rights Act of 1866, 1868.
Okay.
The Civil Rights, that tells you what the 14th Amendment actually is and why it exists. In fact, the existence of the United States will depend on how we understand the 14th Amendment. If we flub it up and lose it, then, ladies and gentlemen, the America that you came here for will no longer exist. It'll be something else. It may be called the United States, but it will no longer exist. In fact, I'd give it 3 years before the United States, or these United States, whatever you want to call it, these several states, will come to an end.
Mm-hmm. But right now, I don't think it's working. When we have a centralized power, like, for example, we've been having more and more the last 100 years, and there is no more the 10th Amendment that I think is very important to keep at least the opportunity to have different states with more freedoms. Because
do you know how that happened?
Yeah.
But do you understand how we got big government?
Tell
me.
You know why it
happened?
Please, go ahead, please, Ted.
The reason that we have big government was the Civil War, was slavery, was because of slavery. The states fought, half the states, in fact, 47 of the signs of the Declaration of Independence owned slaves. Okay, 47 of the 56 owned slaves. Mm-hmm. So the country was born divided, a house divided against itself, as Abraham Lincoln aptly pointed out. These people, they did not want to, boy, I lost my train of thought, sir. I'm sorry.
No problem, no problem.
With that.
No problem.
Oh, my gosh. I cannot stand that. I know, big government. So the country was divided. And in order to end this thing, we had to have a big government, and it was under the dictator. That's what he was, Abraham Lincoln, okay?
Yeah.
And that was the biggest government program ever, okay? Now, the slaves needed help, so big government said, "We're going to put up the Reconstruction. We're going to set the South down. We're going to put the Union soldiers down there to keep the white people off the black people. We're going to give black people jobs and housing, and we're going to put them in government positions and so forth."
Sounds like Obama to me.
Yes, what it was. Okay.
Sounds like Obama.
Then, when the federal government backed off of doing its duty according to the Civil Rights Act of 1866 and the 14th Amendment, when it failed to continue to do its duty to protect the freed slaves, the southern states, using states' rights, began to write Jim Crow, Black Code, racist laws against the freed states. Now, remember, these are immigrant people who are doing this, okay? That lasted for 99 years until 1964. When 1964 came in, the big deal was the Civil Rights Act. And we were told it was to bring justice, jobs, and tear down the walls of segregation and so forth. Well, actually, what that was, it was a socialist pill in disguise. Is what that was. That's how, see, Dr. King, bless his heart, meant well, but did not know what he was doing. That's why he began to listen to the communists and to the socialists, because he himself, being a wealthy black man, did not know what poverty was. And so when he tried to address poverty, he didn't have the answers. If you notice, listen to Dr. King's speeches. He's great. He's a great orator. He's a great prophet. He's a great poet. He was great in criticizing what was wrong and dreaming about what we'd all like to have. But if you ask him how, he didn't have a clue. So when they sat down with Lyndon Johnson and those crafty Democrats, they told King, the socialists said, we will give you government programs, housing, welfare. You know the story, right? And what that did was that opened the floodgate for the federal government to go beyond what it was supposed to do, but all the while hiding behind black people, saying we're doing this for black people, when they weren't doing it for black people.
Ted, I have a question for you.
That's how big government came. And that's another thing, sir.
Yes.
The reason why we black people continue to vote 100%, nearly 100%, for the Democrats, the big government, because that's all we've ever known is big government. It was big government that got us out of slavery.
Question.
It was big government.
I have a question for you. Who owns the business, your private business? Let's say you have a little business. Who owns, you or the government?
You own that business.
Okay, so good. I like that because I feel the same. Supposed to be, so, it's the fruit of our work, of our, experience.
Yeah, you own that business.
Our risk, fine. So as a free human being, when you own something, you should have the freedom to decide how you want to use it, right?
Right.
So, for example, let's say, and I have nothing, I want to say straight where I'm going to, okay? It's about the gay issue. And I don't have anything, honestly, it's none of my business. They don't do it in front of my face. I don't care. But that's just me speaking, of course. But if somebody comes to my business, somebody comes to your business, okay, and they demand that you need to provide a service against your will, and I don't care if it's because that person is a gay or not, but in this case, let's say he's a gay, okay? You don't like it. For moral reason, you don't want to do a freaking cake for that, okay? That's your personal belief. You think the government should have the force, the right to coerce you to offer that service?
In that particular matter, no. But in the matter when we black folks would try to go into a restaurant and they said the law says blacks are not allowed, that's when the federal government has to step in and say, no, because now you are denying fellow Americans life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, not because of choice of sexuality, but because of the way they were born.
What's about
the gays? What the gays have done is they, like the illegal aliens, and like the Muslims, and like white wealthy women, they've always hid behind black people to justify their cause.
I have a question, though, and honestly, I have no problem with anybody. I don't care about if you're gay. I don't care if you're black, orange, or if you're a WAP, okay? I mean, for me, it's about human being. That's the bottom line. That's me, of course. But my point is another. If I want to use the logic, if that's really my business, okay, I'm just going there by philosophical, almost just logic, okay? If that's my business, that means I am not a slave. Nobody should be force me to the way I want to make money or lose money. It's my right. I
agree with you.
Honestly, I can say, what? I don't care if you're a white man. Just I don't like your smell. I don't like your face. I don't like to serve you, period, because I'm not a slave. This is my business. And I understand what happened in the past because I wasn't here. I wasn't even born around that time. But I read, I watched, and I tried to document myself. I understand that there were times in history, even if you were in black, even if you were just maybe in Irish, they didn't want to serve you. Or maybe if you were an Italian, they didn't want to serve you. It wasn't just about being black. Of course, black, they got the most of it. But the point is, at the same time, as my humble opinion, I really think that if I want to go to be, I am the boss of my own business and the government is not my master, I should have the right to refuse service to even the Pope. If the Pope comes to my business, I don't want to give him service.
But in this country, sir,
yes,
in this country, that freedom that you experienced, that was paid for by people before you came.
I understand.
And that freedom has a moral cost to that.
But what's about the gay? I mean, let's use the logic.
And it's based around what happened with chattel slavery.
But what's about the gays? At this point, using your logic, I think even the gays should have the right to be having that cake, if you like it or not.
Gays should, no, because if they can argue it on merit, great. They could not argue that on merit. They had to argue it behind civil rights. They don't have that. They don't have that road. If they could argue it on their own merit, fine. But you never hear them argue on their own merit. And therefore, if someone says, I cannot support this because of your immoral behavior, they have a right. I believe they have a right.
Mm-hmm.
And if I was a gay person, by the way,
yes,
I would want some heterosexual to fix my cake. They may spit in it.
Oh, I agree with you. We're just talking about, just in academic way. That's the bottom line. We're just trying to use logic and trying to see, where things, this is not about, gay, it's not about black, it's not about being right or wrong. I like to have an academic, yes, go ahead.
In this country, as I said to you again from the beginning of our conversation, if you really want to understand America, you must understand the Civil War and what that was about. You must understand the 14th Amendment. That's when you get clear. Until then, it's every man for themselves. It's my American dream. It's my freedom for life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. I do what I want to do. The federal government can't tell me what to do. No one can tell me what to do.
Okay, what do you think about Obamacare? The federal government tells you now that you must be forced to buy a product, in this case, a health insurance, even if you don't have the money. You got to buy the product, otherwise you pay a fine.
That I disagree with.
Okay,
that I disagree with.
Why?
The only thing that I see where the federal government can interject itself, according to the Constitution now, is the matter of chattel slavery and its aftermath, black people. Apart from that, feds got nothing else to say here.
Okay,
they have nothing else to say. All the feds supposed to do is defend the country from invasion, which they're not doing, okay? They're supposed to see to it that we have a level playing field for all citizens to participate. Period. But it also referees, for example, gays. It said no gays. Sorry, you cannot hide behind black people. No, rich women, you can't hide behind black minorities. You can't hide behind black people. That is something sacred and different and apart. You got an argument with me? Argue it on your merits.
Question now. I understand what you're saying. I want to just go to another topic. I understand. This is you made your point clear. I understand that. Now, I would like to go back to what's happening right now in America. You talk, you're an advocate of the homeless. You live between them. Meanwhile, we have the federal government spending billions of dollars. I think giving $1,000 for each new refugee coming from Syria. Even we know that it's not just Syria. Probably it's other countries. We have no idea. What do you think about this Obama's proposal to bring more than 100,000 refugees from everywhere and giving them also, of course, all the extorted tax dollar that the federal government is so, benevolently taking from us? What is your opinion as a black American and also a homeless person?
I think he's wrong. I think he's absolutely wrong about that. And Donald Trump is right about that. And the word refugee, the first people to be considered refugees were the freed slaves in this country. Let me read you something from the Civil Rights Act of 1866 where it talks about enforcing this law. It says here that and if any suit or prosecution, civil or criminal, has been or shall be commenced in any state court against any such person for any cause whatsoever, or against any officer, civil or military, or other persons for any arrest or imprisonment, trespasses or wrongs done or committed by virtue or under color of authority derived from this act, which is to hurt black folks, or the act, or the free slaves, or the act of establishing a bureau for the relief of freedmen and refugees. We are the American refugees. Why are we the American refugees? Because we have not yet, as a people, a talented fifth has achieved it, but as a people, while we are technically United States citizens, we are not enjoying and experiencing a citizenship that the immigrant people of this country are experiencing. Therefore, because of our socioeconomic state, we are still under the federal protection as refugees. Therefore, Mr. President, which it speaks to the President 3 times in this section, has her number one job is to protect the refugees. Because if you protect the refugees, you will automatically protect the rest of the nation. See, he has no business doing that.
Okay,
So I'm with you.
Very good. Okay, listen, the last question I have, because I watched the documentary really woke me up, was the 4th of July, 1996, in front of the Federal Building in Los Angeles, where American people, they were exercising the First Amendment, and they were completely assaulted by hordes of illegal aliens, while the police, they were doing nothing. They were turning the other side. And that video is out there, and I will post it again. That was 1996. Now we are 2015. You live in Los Angeles. How things are going right now? Did they improve? Did they get worse? How are we getting now with the integration or with these hordes of people coming from south of the border?
Things are worse. And as I said, we got about 3 years before we be declared the end of the United States. Things are worse. And the only way you're going to stop it, you got to remember, these guys used a moral cause. They say, you're hurting us. You are racist. You're separating our families. We have children. We just want a better lifestyle. How can you be that way towards us? You see, Abraham Lincoln, when he understood what this country was about and what God thought about America, he gained the moral fortitude. He knew he had to hurt the nation in order to save the nation. And the only reason he was able to do that was because he knew he had the moral high ground for what he was doing. And we American citizens have to understand what Abraham Lincoln had. He had the moral high ground to hurt. We need to have the moral high ground to say to these people, so what? Your families are disrupted. So what? You got to go back to Mexico where you may die. So what? Whatever, you have to go. Why? Because your presence here is making a mockery of the 740,000 young, innocent white boys who gave their lives for these black people. And we're not going to allow you to take from these black people what they gave them. Go. And they can't argue with that, and they'll have to go.
Oh.
That's how you deal with it. There is no other way to deal with it.
Perfect. And this
you can argue with them all day long, and they're going to play the race card. They're going to play the pity card. They're going to show you their babies, all of that, and you'll capitulate. But if you understand what this is, you speak this way, they'll leave you alone.
Ted,
that's why the Hispanic Latino leadership refuses to have a conversation with me.
Yes, Ted, please, time is gone, but I really appreciate what you said. This is a great exchange of ideas. I like to learn, and I like also to share what we feel from each other. This is great. You've been an inspiration, even if I don't agree with everything we do. I think you're a great guy. No, I really do, because, and this is the opportunity to be in America, to learn from each other, to experience each other, to challenge each other.
I respect you for coming correctly the way the government has set it up. You did right. And what you immigrant guys need to do, you need to form a movement and have a big march and rally as immigrants, reaching immigrants, and you need to tell these guys you cannot get in front of the line here. Go back and stand in line.
Ted, give your website. Give your website. I got that close. I got the commercial coming. Give your website.
TedHayes.us. Go there and you'll find everything else that I do.
Perfect, guys. Don't go away. You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom with Lucas Zanna. Don't go away.
Bye, Lucas.
A poet, a rifleman,
I'm not afraid,
and a constitutional activist.
I'm not afraid,
Italian by birth,
I'm not afraid,
American by choice. Gianluca Zanna.
I'm not afraid.
And his new CD, Love, Guns, and Freedom. 16 powerful songs on one CD from the heart of a patriot. For download or to order the CD, go to www.lovegunsfreedom.com. That's www.lovegunsfreedom.com.
You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom with Lucas Zanna on United States.FM network. Here we go, guys. You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom with Lucas Zanna on lovegunsandfreedom.com and also on United States.FM. Don't forget, also, you're listening to the radio, KTOX 1340. Yeah. Now, this is the hour about guns. Last week we talked about several topics, and I like always to, divide this hour, not just about news or about philosophy or about, the Second Amendment. I like to do practical things. And we will talk today, of course, about, first of all, some rifle ideas that are really, I think would be a very great addition to your rifles, especially if you're on a budget, to have a battlefield rifle in 308 for very affordable price, semi-auto, with incredible magazines that they are below $10. So incredible stuff for great value. Find your great rifle. And then the importance, of course, of the 22 caliber for training and also for other purposes, and some ideas of rifles. But now, coming down to the practical aspect, training aspect, my job is to always bring here with you, the best places or the best facilities or the best ideas how to train. And, I'm not really advocating anybody, because for me, it's about the opportunity to give you. I introduce here with you Front Sight many times. Of course, I'm a life member, but I would have done that anyway, because I think they have a great curriculum. But not everybody can go to Front Sight, for example, especially, if you're not a life member. It can cost you a lot of money. And then I also introduce you Gun Sight. Even I'm not a member, but I like to give the opportunity to people to know more about this facility. And then, of course, I have local other instructors in the area of Mojave County. So my only goal is to have as many law-abiding citizens here, not only that exercise their Second Amendment right, but also they do it right, they're going to do it safely, and they're going to do it in a proficient way. That's the bottom line, because I always believe that more law-abiding citizens are armed, and more this republic will be safe against criminals and evil tyrants. That's why I'm here. Now, I told you, we talked like a couple of weeks ago about a very important event that was happening in the area of Kingman, exactly at the Shots Ranch, with this pretty much free. It's a great training, couple of days trainings that I wanted to attend, and that was something that really breaks my heart. But right now, my private life is kind of a mess, so I couldn't. But I have the guy that put all this together, and he donated so much of his time and resources to make it happen. And he's the person that I would like to ask him now exactly what happened, what type of training happened on this facility, and what was the turnaround and everything else. His name is Jay Okimoto. Jay, are you there?
I am here. Thank you very much.
Very good. Welcome back, by the way. Thank you very much. And I heard news that this event at the Shots Ranch went very well, but I wanted to hear from you directly. Tell us exactly what happened, how many people attended, and more important, what was the training that the most important part of the training that normally people couldn't find in many other schools or facilities, because I heard you have some very specific, realistic training there.
Well, one of the things that we really observed that came to light was, number one, we had a lot of students that came up to us throughout the event as well as after the event and admitted to us, we actually thought we were pretty well prepared when it came to using a firearm for legal, family, and personal protection. And after the event, many of them said, wow, I actually didn't realize how much I did not know. And it's kind of common because when I've talked with some of these folks as well as some of the other instructors, we found out that a lot of people learn their firearms training usually from a family member. Mm-hmm. They'll either go to a gun range or they'll go to, out in the desert with, their father or their brother or sister or another, loved one or family friend. And, they taught them how to shoot a gun. And that was pretty much the extent of it. So that was one of the big things that came out. The second big thing that came out, to answer your question about what made this event a little bit different, was that 50% of the courses had nothing to do with live fire. Mm-hmm. 50% of the courses were workshops and lecture classes that had everything to do with general preparedness to crisis preparedness type of situations. So it was a nice balance between a firearms type of training geared towards the armed legal civilian, as well as other types of training that had nothing to do with pulling a trigger.
Exactly. I was very excited about that. And anyway, you had a great, the location at the Shots Ranch is not exactly central. It's kind of in the boonies. But I was impressed to know how many people attended there. We're talking about more than 200 people, right?
That is correct. We lost count somewhere around 226-ish or so. our guesstimate is somewhere between 220 to 250.
That's very good. I mean, remember, people are always busy, and you know, they like to have things close by, and you had a very good crowd, especially because then you commit yourself to do things, not just go there and have an ice cream. So that was pretty good. I like that. Now, I remember that we were talking about off the air about a specific class that was kind of interesting, because normally at the typical gun range you cannot do it, and it was force on force. That means like really people should not chew, you know. And tell us exactly more how this class was articulated. What type of specific tools did you use?
Sure. Well, let me give you a little bit of background first on force and force for your listeners, because they may not necessarily understand what that term means, or they may have a inaccurate definition of what force and force was all about.
Yes.
Force and force type of training is where you're not using live fire, but you're using some type of simulated firearms, either with a commercial type of training platform called Simunitions or UTG, and in our case, we ended up using mil-spec type realistic airsoft firearms, both carbines and rifles, and pistols. And what happens is that in a gun range scenario where you have the limitations of a square range, what I mean by that is that you can only shoot in one direction. Real life doesn't give you a one-directional, single-faceted type of defensive crisis event. In a real-life scenario, your event happens to play on 360 degrees. You cannot take a live gun and start shooting 360 degrees to practice 360 degrees worth of, protection. So we use simulated firearms to generate that type of environment. And because of that, we also end up using some real live induced stress that would happen, in a crisis scenario. For example, a civilian-based ambush attack by some bad guy or a group of bad people. Because of the fact that you're using less than lethal type of products, you can now train to a much more realistic standard. And it's become such a proponent of training at a exponential level in the training world that you see force on force now being taught at all of your law enforcement academies, as well as in some of the higher echelons of the military. And they've proven that shooting at a paper target is great for weapons manipulation and learning weapons remedial skills, like, how to operate a firearm and all the pieces that come with that. But when it comes to dealing with live scenarios where you're actually role-playing, where people are actually pretending to be bad people, and you're now having to learn how to defend yourself against an unknown variable, which is different personalities, it becomes much more realistic. And you watch a lot of people who are really good at shooting a firearm not know how to defend themselves for the first time, because at the end of the day, force and force, not teaching you how to use a gun. It's actually teaching you how to fight, and a gun is nothing more than one of many tools.
Exactly. I'm glad you said that, because, I would like to remind to everybody out there, we all start somewhere. It's a journey, okay? And of course, you cannot run unless you're able to walk first. But when you got the first, let's say, results, you're able to walk, okay? Or you can feel comfortable that you can hit the target every time you want on demand. Don't think that your journey is over. Don't think now you're going to save the world. This is just the beginning. We must be very humble about this, because there's so much more to discover. And unfortunately, I understand the average range, it is difficult even to have a chance to exercise the type of training, because there are some limitations due to safety. And one way, for example, I realized that forget about a gun. Think about as you said, this is unfortunately is a fighting experience, is a dramatic experience. Somebody's charging you. Could be with a knife, could be with another weapon like a gun or whatever. And the point is, you need to be able to think that you are no more in front of the piece of paper, that the target doesn't shoot back at you, it doesn't charge you, it doesn't attack you, it's there. Instead, the real life is going to be all different. That's why I think it's vital to incorporate somehow, somewhere, find a way, some sort of a basic force on force. For example, one thing, I was able to, my personal experience to do, there is this little gun, probably you're familiar with that, it's called the SIRT, it's S-I-R-T. It's like it's not really a gun, it's a training tool. It looks like a Glock, but it's not a Glock. And there is a laser inside, okay? And are you familiar with that gun, Jay?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. And, even, of course, it's not the real gun. We're not talking about ammunition and recoil and shooting. But if just trying the experience that you have a gun in your holster and you have an opponent, and, of course, when I say this, always do it with something that you know that is not a real gun, and then you have an opponent with a knife, even just charging you, and it's something that normally we don't do in the regular day at the range. It makes you realize how much really there is to learn, and not just shooting fast, but also moving from the X that normally you were there and trying to learn how to evade. So there is so much more. Anything you can tell us about, I don't know, some experience that you had with this force on force with your students?
It was interesting to see that there was quite a bit of students that had formal military training. Mm-hmm. And it was great to see their insight, because one of the things they told us was that, when we learned how to shoot a firearm, it was primarily purely offensive. Mm-hmm. Of course, you can use it as a defensive role whenever you're doing certain types of tactical movement. But for the most part, as we've talked about in the past, I've always said that the military is good for two things. That's what they were designed for. Number one, kill bad guys, and number two, break things. Mm-hmm. But when you're a civilian, you can't necessarily deploy military tactics. And so when we started doing force on force, and there was quite a bit of DOD guys in the class, the first thing they said was, wow, we've never seen defensive strategies and tactics mm-hmm. from a purely civilian point of view. And we now understand that, unlike law enforcement and DOD, where you can brandish a firearm to use it as a deterrent to stop a threat, a civilian can't do that. We have to wait till almost the very last minute, mm-hmm. which means that by law, when you deploy your firearm, i.e. you're brandishing your firearm legally, it's because the situation has come across that you have no choice other than to deploy your firearm and start pressing the trigger.
Exactly.
Now, you can have that split second where all of a sudden the bad guy sees you deploying your firearm and they run the other direction. But many, many times, how do you stop somebody who's already knocked you onto the ground, you're on your back, and they're jumping on you, and now you're not only having to deploy your firearm, you have to fight them off just so you can get to your firearm. And in the force and force class, when we ran some of these more realistic scenarios, a lot of these guys who are well trained, in the art of using a carbine for offensive maneuvers, they couldn't get their pistol out of their holster. And as a result, they ended up becoming a victim in the scenario role.
Exactly.
And so when you expose people to being in what I call a crisis ambush situation, which is what most civilians will find themselves in if it is a lethal encounter, you're not going to have time to set your platform up, whether it's your hunting rifle you're using for defense, or your sidearm, or, for a lot of your, lady listeners, they might carry their firearm in their purse. How long does it take to actually get your firearm out of your handbag to stop somebody who's already jumping on you?
Exactly. This is so important because, unfortunately, not everybody has the luck to survive an encounter if they weren't prepared. Because, it's like, to know what type of cars do you have, okay? I know my cars, okay? I know some cars, they're old, and I know that on the highway there is so much I can push these cars, especially if I have, let's say, I need to surpass somebody. I'm not going to push that truck at 90 miles an hour when I know cannot go more than 60 miles an hour. Every one of us should know our limits of our response time. That is going to be or with the rifle or if you carry a handgun. And that's why it's so important that we stick whatever way you're going to train carrying that weapon is the way that you're going to also, in the real life, keep the same weapon in the same position. I mean, for example, sometimes I see friends that, they carry the gun, I don't know, at the range on, cross draw. By the way, it's also very irresponsible, in my opinion, because you muzzle the rest of the world. But let's say they do that type of cross draw, and then they change type of position of the holster in their real life. It's going to be a problem. You got to stick with whatever you think it's your normal day life or body type. And I tell you, especially people with purses or ladies, that requires another world of training. And you need to have also the right tools there. You can just have any type of purse that's going to work. Now, any type of notes that would be interesting to learn from these 2 days, how many days? Were 2 or 3 days experience at the shot range?
It was 3 days.
3 days. Something fun to share, something that we would like to know, even just to learn from just listening.
Well, I think the biggest thing is that we basically took a straw poll. In other words, we had the instructors ask people at the beginning of all their classes how many people actually took a formal firearms or armed defensive course in their life that was, and the military training does not count for this because we're talking about civilian training. And, it was less than 10%. And it was interesting that the bulk of the people who actually had formal training were law enforcement officers who considered their academy training as a formalized training. So realistically, if we strip them out, we're talking about less than 3% of all attendees actually took a formalized class from, for example, you brought out gun sight and front sight. Shots Ranch is another school that we held this event at. So whether it's Shots Ranch or gun sight, front sight, or any of the other well-known instructors, it was less than 5%. It was more like 2 to 3, and it was pretty. It was a pretty big eye-opening experience to find that out. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of these people said, "Hey, you know what? The most important thing we got out of this training event was it exposed us to what we didn't know that we thought we knew, because most civilians are probably fairly capable to start a crisis event with a firearm in their hand, pointed somewhat towards at the bad guy, and say, okay, Mr. Bad Guy, now do your thing. In the civilian world, though, that doesn't happen. 90% plus of civilian violent encounters happen in the same parameters that a very well-known instructor by the name of Craig Douglas came up with. And he came up with this 4-step paradigm. And his 4-step paradigm, he called it the criminal assault paradigm. And here's how it works. And if you guys get anything out of this radio show, make sure you remember this.
Please go ahead.
When it comes to a criminal attack, expect the following. Number 1, expect a surprise or ambush. Number 2, if surprise or ambush is not available, expect them to use a ruse to close the distance gap. And when we're talking about distance gaps, we're talking about anybody within 7 yards of where you're at. So think of yourself as the center of a circle with 7 yards of radius. That is 7 yards in any direction. A very well-known instructor by the name of Dennis Tuller, who's a retired lieutenant from the Salt Lake City Police Department, came up with this principle called the Tuller principle. And they basically did enough research and found out that most violent attacks occur within this 7-yard radius. They found that the typical bad guy can normally clear a distance of 7 yards, that's about 21 feet, within 1.5 seconds. For most people, they can't even get their firearm out and on target in 1.5 seconds, much less realize what's going on before they end up thinking they need to get their firearm out. So usually by the time the criminal is on them, only then are they realizing they're actually in trouble. The third thing of the 4 principles is expect a hidden weapon, like a hidden knife or a hidden gun. And number 4, expect a hidden friend or 2 or 3 on the bad guy side, not your side. And that is the typical situation for most civilians dealing with a violent crisis event. And if you train for that, you'll quickly realize that setting up in a comfortable isosceles or Weaver-style stance, taking your time to get good breath control, good trigger control, and good sight picture, and then pressing your trigger is not going to happen in real life. Usually these events aren't even in the events if you're using your firearm, because you're not going to be able to get your firearm up enough to even see your sights. You're going to be shooting from a point-shoot position because you're fighting them off with your other arm.
Exactly. I mean, but as I said before, we got to start always from learning the basics, and that's a great step. You want to learn how to walk first, and then you must advance to the real life scenario. And it's so important, everything. It's important, guys, that first you find the basic foundation, like I talked probably a few times, the 3 secrets how to shoot straight, and try to hit that target every time you need to on demand. And then after you graduate from that point, you got to start to explore your world 360 degrees with the real dynamics, no more just, you got to find every way you can. I mean, get creatives, okay? Sometimes people say, I don't have the money to go to a school. That's fine. But you can start to understand that the real life, you need to do everything you can to start to be prepared. By the way, one of the purposes of the show is to give you opportunities, because many people say, I don't have the money to join a gun sight or front sight. I understand. That's why I like Shots Ranch, what it's doing with you, what it gave you the opportunity to do, and what you did. The class, the 3 days seminars, or whatever you want to call it, it was pretty much free. So I hope some of my listeners took that opportunity. And I would like to also give another opportunity, because at the end of the day, it's an investment. It's an investment for yourself, for your family, and also for things that you hope are never going to happen. But sometimes, you got to invest not only a little bit of time, but also you got to invest a little bit of money, because you may have, let's say, a lot of guns. Great. But how much did you really invest in education to operate and to be able to use proficiently in a self-defense situation any of your weapons? Sometimes I always to say to some of my friends, maybe sell a couple of these guns that you don't use and get with that money some good training. And I don't even tell you where to do it. Get it wherever you can, wherever you think your money is going to be worth it. But get some professional training. That's for me the most important thing I learned, So now, talking about training, you came up with an idea that I really appreciated, by the way, to give the opportunity to my listeners and for the people who live around the area of Kingman, Mohave County. But of course, if you live far away, you're welcome to come to a special event happening in this fall, in this coming spring. And I know we're still far away, but guess what? I like to put things ahead of time. And something we would like to do probably at the Shots Ranch. And there is a specific curriculum, and there is a very affordable price for the value of the training. And doing so, join this coming class that I really would like you to invite to come, or at least to consider. Doing so, not only you, of course, get some great training for yourself, but also you support the show that you're listening to. That's one of the things I like about the show. I like to keep it free. I don't want to depend just on commercial sponsors, but I like to create revenues out of my work, out of my job, offer you things or services that you enjoy. They may benefit you, and indirectly they help the show and to try to pay some of the costs that I have to put this stuff together. Now, Jay, give us the idea of this event. Let's give him also a name. And what is exactly the curriculum that you want to cover?
Well, here's what I want to cover with this. The focus of this event that I want to put together in spring, obviously, is to not only benefit somebody who wants to be more proficient at personal protection from a civilian standpoint, but also I want to make sure that because you've got loyal listeners, I want to give them an opportunity to get affordable training. So I've been looking at a event protocol, if you will, where we're just kind of brainstorming at this point. But some of the goals that I'd like to be able to have this event do, number one, is to give some training that probably is going to be worth somewhere around $700 to $800 down to a much more affordable level. Right now, I don't want to necessarily give people an idea of what that dollar amount's going to be, but I want to try to keep that dollar amount somewhere in the low $100 range, preferably if I can keep it somewhere around the $200 range or so. That is what my goal is. And here's what I'd like to focus this training on. I want to call it something that would be similar to learning how to defend yourself from going from white belt to black belt in about 2.5 days.
Wow.
And that doesn't mean that you're going to be a proficient gunfighter. What I want to do is to expose someone who may just have purchased a firearm just recently or have been taught by a family member or a friend on how to shoot and has always cared about personal protection but never ended up taking any real personal protection courses because of either they were unaware of these types of events or they just didn't have the financial resources. My goal is to take somebody, like I said, at that level, and you can be somebody who's also a veteran because it'll get hard enough for veterans as well. So my goal is to really focus on 4 areas when we put this event. The first thing is that we want to talk about the non-shooting side that often gets ignored. We focus significantly on the non-shooting side of winning a violent crisis event. So the first area of focus is going to be on the legalities of civilian armed self-defense. And we're going to visit some studies on common civilian attacks and the environments they happen in, because if you don't know how to evade and stay away from some of these situations, you're going to walk yourself right into an ambush. A very famous instructor by the name of Clint Smith, who owns Thunder Ranch, had a saying, 20 years ago, don't do stupid things with stupid people in stupid places. Yet a lot of times we'll catch ourselves doing stupid things in stupid places with stupid people. And I'm not saying people are stupid in the sense where they're bad. What I'm talking about is people who are not situationally aware, and as a result of a ambush crisis, instead of them becoming an asset to help, they become a liability, because now you're forced not only to protect yourself, but you're also forced to protect them because they were not ready. And now you have to split your already limited resources between protecting you and a third party that you really weren't ready for. So that's the first focus. The second focus is actually on criminal behavior psychology and on how to deter common civilian attacks based on the environment and the scenario. These are not shooting classes at this stage. This is actually more of a situational awareness portion of the course, as well as some workshops on criminals and deviant psychology and criminal behavior. If you don't know what you're up against, if you don't know the enemy's playbook, you already start behind the curve. And a lot of gun schools may teach some of this, but usually in the beginning courses, it's primarily marksmanship and manipulation. We want to start you right off the bat saying, look, if you're truly trying to own a firearm for personal legal protection, then let's get you into the meat and potatoes right off the bat. And we can still do it safely with firearms manipulation and remedial training, but we're going to incorporate it right from the get-go, because at the end of the day, we're not trying to put 5 rounds into a 1-inch circle at 25 yards. What we're trying to do is make sure you can get 5 rounds off in 2 seconds in a 8-inch diameter circle, which covers the torso or the major mass portion of the bad guy's body as quickly as possible, and then teach you how to create distance so that you can get away. Because at the end of the day, your mission as a civilian is different than a law enforcement officer or a soldier. You're not there to kill the bad guy. You're there to go home after the event and lead a normal life as if the event never happened, which means that you don't have to shoot. You just have to learn about some of the more important things that prevent you from even having to deploy a firearm in self-defense. And if you can do that, you already won.
Exactly.
For those people who have already applied those rules and still need to get into the fight, that's when we start visiting the next couple of modules, which is gear selection and maintenance of that gear, focusing specifically on civilian armed defensive training, not marksmanship, but practical marksmanship. And practical defensive marksmanship is not about putting 5 rounds in a 1-inch circle. It's about being able to hit center of mass to deter the bad guy from continuing their attack on you. In other words, it's called stopping the threat.
Exactly. And
lastly,
go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, finish your concept, please.
And then lastly, the last module would be focusing the training on starting with the defensive pistol in mind. We can use all kinds of platforms, but if we get one platform that's easy to train with and easy for people to move around and keeps the cost down, instead of showing up with a $1,500 AR, you can show up with a $500 Glock and be able to take that same knowledge, and you can now practice those same types of tactics with other platforms on your leisure at your own time.
Exactly. At the end of the day, the mindset is, doesn't matter if you have a knife, doesn't matter the awareness, doesn't matter if you have a stick or empty hands or a gun, it's the same. And the same story, if you have a handgun or a rifle, it only depends what type of tools you have, but you keep the same type of mindset as a training. And also another thing, you said something very important. One thing that probably is the most important we have to learn as civilians, the concept that we are not here to kill anybody. We are here to save a life. We are not here to take a life. It could be our life, or we want to save an innocent life. That's the only thing we want to do. And the gun or the lethal force is the last resort. And normally we arrive to that point when we failed, and sometimes can happen, to go through the process of this awareness that is so important. As you said before, the best fight is the one that we can avoid because we were aware that we were getting to a fight. We are not here to prove anything. We don't here to say, okay, now I have a gun, I'm going to walk among this bunch of people, I know they want to hurt me, and I'll go there because I think I can do that. That's the wrong attitude, We want to be sure that, like sometimes people, you see these, for example, martial artists, the guy that is a black belt and 7 Dan or whatever you want to call it, he doesn't need to prove anything. He doesn't need to go among the bar and beat everybody up. Normally he's the most peaceful guy. And that's what I believe most of the law-abiding gun owners, we are peaceful people. We understand that with freedom comes responsibility, and we're here to try to avoid any type of aggressions, But at the same time, when we are forced to, and we have no other way, we must be able and we must be trained to perform at the best of our abilities. That's why I think it's so important, this idea of training. Now, what I'll do, Jay, I want to put on lovegunsfreedom.com, I will create a page, specific page, and I want you to give it the name, okay? Whatever you want to think about the next few days, we give a name of the event. And I will post there on this training a weekend or 2.5 days, whatever you want to call it. I will post the curriculum of the things that you were saying, and with the final official price, okay? Price means fees to pay. That we said it's going to be approximately about $200. So I would like to start to see people out there that they always have say, I don't know where to train, and they have finally an opportunity. And I know many of my listeners, they're also in Phoenix, other parts of Arizona. I got a great lady, for example, in Apache Junction with a husband that she likes to train. I have people from around Arizona too. So we are not that far. That would be a great also opportunity to maybe meet together and spend a couple of days. And I really would like to meet you and train with you. I think it would be a great opportunity. So let's do that, Jay. Can you, as you're ready, the next few days, send me the official final curriculum, and let's find the name of this training event.
Not a problem. And for your listeners, I just want you guys to know that one of the motivators for me to put this together is primarily because Luca does such a great community service, and he doesn't ask people, to pay for his radio show. He has sponsors, but, Luca can't do this without help from the rest of us in the responsible firearms community. And so one of my big motivations, if you guys really enjoy Luca being on the air, help us out, because some of the proceeds to this event is going to be a donation to Luca's show so he can continue to do what he does and allows him to keep doing the good fight. So for all you listeners out there, please let Luca know. And I don't care what methodology you guys use to contact him, but it would let us know whether it's feasible to do this. If all of a sudden Luca gets a flood of emails or Facebook messages or any type of communication from all you guys out there in Radio Land to say, hey, I want to participate in this, that is something that I can afford, or that is something that I'll find a way to afford. And we're trying to look at sometime around April, May. That should give most people enough time to save up for this. It'll give people enough time where if they need help with a firearm, obviously Luca is a great contact for advice on finding a firearm, where to get a firearm, what type of caliber, what type of accessories that you would need for this type of training. And, obviously he has other resources in the industry like myself that he can always call up for any other information. But, he knows enough. Give him a jingle, give him an email, let him know that you guys are enthusiastic about this, so that way we can make sure that if there's enough interest, we make this thing happen.
And we're going to do this. Sorry, Jay, just to remind, we want to do this at the Shots Ranch, correct, in the Kingman area?
Correct. That's correct. And the reason for it is because, unlike other square ranges, we can train at Shots Ranch where we can actually train 360 degrees. So we can make it much more realistic. Some of the examples that you should expect if you show up to something like this is waking up from a deep sleep and having to address a home invader, or sitting at your kitchen counter and addressing a home invader, or sitting in your car and addressing somebody who is trying to carjack you. Yes. As an example, because these are things that civilians have to deal with. And most of the application is going to roll right into the evening because, again, criminals like using surprise attacks. A lot of surprise attacks happen at night. This is the reason why we're trying to do this over several days, because we want to make sure that you experience defending yourself and possibly a loved one in the most common attack environment, which is low light.
Exactly. Another thing I also would like to say, many of you guys, my listeners at least, they're not just people who enjoy guns, but also they try to prepare for a sort of civilian militia, idea, So, and there is more than just shooting. What I like about when we go to places like the Shots Ranch, normally I do this when I go, for example, to train a front side, I don't go to a hotel or Motel 6. I sleep in the back of my truck. I camp out in the middle of the Death Valley. Can be 120 degrees during the day or 20 degrees at night. I want to test my gear. I want to see if my sleeping bag is good enough. I want to see if I have enough water. I can take care of myself in the middle of an emergency. That's one important thing I like when we go into the Shots Ranch. It's going to be a camping facilities, by the way. And of course, it is not exactly, we're not going to go to Africa, It's not like an extreme situation. But you can start to test, your gear. You can start to test whatever you have to be independent in case you need to deploy yourself to go outside your home and live for at least 72 hours in the middle of nowhere. That's a great part of the training. I really invite you to enjoy that part too.
Absolutely. For some of you folks where that might be a little too much, nothing's wrong with driving out every day. But like Luke said, nothing's wrong with at least having an opportunity to test your outdoor gear. Think of testing your outdoor gear as a freebie, as just being part of the experience. And I tell you, this last event we had 200 plus people camp out, and the camaraderie. I tell you, this has nothing to do with this training event, but I just want to talk about the quality of people that showed up. Mm-hmm. I had my training trailer, Luca, with about $50,000 worth of firearms and firearms accessories and ammunition. Wow. And my trailer was wide open for 3 days. Wow. I had nothing stolen. Wow. That is the quality of the kind of people that came up to this event. And it's not like I'm advertising bad guys to come steal my stuff now. I just want, because I'm not worried, because there's going to be a bunch of other people that will probably have words with you before you can even get to my stuff. They'll probably do it just because they want an award from me. They stopped the bad guys from taking my stuff. I mean, that's how good people care about each other. And like your show is called, Love, Guns, and Freedom.
Exactly.
That's part of the compassionate side of all of this. This is one of the reasons why we train the way we train. But at the end of the day, we do have this unwritten rule amongst us sheepdogs where we just have this unspoken compassion for our fellow man.
Exactly.
Even the bad guys. I mean, we don't want to injure or kill the bad guy. We didn't tell them to attack us. But if we can, deter their attack, if we can de-escalate, we're going to do that because we know, based on our training and our level of competency, what we can actually do. And if we can use a less lethal route and we can still get the job done and still go home and have a normal life, we're going to do it. That's what good people do, right, Luca?
Exactly. The idea is here, guys, we don't want to kill anybody. Sometimes I hate when I see people with ignorance that they try to paint us and to put us in this sort of a cage that the gun owners, they are monsters who have breakfast, have children for breakfast. And that's exactly not the case, most of the people that I meet normally at the range, or like you said, at the schools, they are people that are polite, law-abiding people. I mean, never had any problem, and always the less confrontational. There is always a jerk out there, don't get me wrong, but there is a jerk in any situation, in any world anyway. Jay, I wanted to say another thing also. I wanted to thank you, first of all, because Jay is not just a great guy when it comes down to Second Amendment and also, of course, training. And he puts a lot of his time and effort to try to share this knowledge. Also, he's a great guy when it comes down to computers. Today, I was having a problem, and to my probably a simple things it is, but still, when you don't know things, nothing's simple. And I wasn't able to go on the air. I mean, I couldn't able to record this interview. And Jay saved the day because Jay also, that's what he does for a living. It's a high tech guy, right? I mean, correct?
My primary source of revenue is that I own a technology company specializing in computer infrastructure and security. Most of our customers are in regulated industries, so healthcare, banking, legal, finance, government. And so, we do a pretty good job at trying to keep people up and running. It's one of those things where this firearms training side of my business, it was nothing more than a complementary component to protection. You can protect data and you can protect infrastructure all day long and you can harden your facilities. And there really is not that much of a stretch to teaching people how to protect themselves and their loved ones. It's still the same mindset.
Exactly. And also I consider this an act of love, as you were saying, because at the end of the day, there are different type of efforts that we can do. Some people, they feel comfortable to go to a church and to help the poor. That's a great thing. Other people try to use their time to help other humans to become safer and, of course, to save other lives. Because at the end of the day, we're talking about saving lives. That's the bottom line. You have a weapon not to take a life, but to save a life and save the innocent's life. That's why we're here. And, of course, I always say the other purpose for me, the main purpose, is to defend freedom and this republic. But that's another story. Jay, I want to thank you again. I got to go now to put some little information out there. I got a couple interesting things that people may be interested to buy. If you have 5 minutes, you can spend it with me. I was going to talk about a rifle that I think it's a great addition, especially for a battlefield rifle in 308. For example, do you have 2 extra minutes with me about it?
Absolutely. I'm happy to talk gear with you. It's obviously something I enjoy, so have at it.
Perfect. Okay, this is the situation. Every hour, during the second hour, I try to bring, really as an act of love, these are not my sponsors, I try to find deals and opportunities in valuable things, like, for example, ammunition or prices on rifles or handguns, okay? For example, I always say, you got to have a rifle. That's the bottom line. Then, whatever caliber works for you, that's fine. I mean, I'm not going to here to tell you. But, at the end of the day, it's like when you go for different type of situation. You have different type of attire, different type of clothing. If I have to go to a fun party, for example, I will dress in a way. If I go to, I don't go to churches. But if I go to church, I will dress another way. Same story with the rifle. There is a rifle that does it all, maybe. But at the end of the day, there is always a rifle for every situation. Depends on the caliber. Now, when I come down to battlefield rifle, I consider battlefield rifle a rifle that would be my main rifle, and normally it's chambered in a 308 or 7.62 by 51. Don't get me wrong. People with AR-15, 5.56, they can do a lot of good things if you train. But there is also another type of dynamic. We're talking about different type of ballistic, a different type of also purpose. After all, a 5.56 is for flesh, it's for humans. And, if let's say in an emergency situation, the world collapses, and I need to use this rifle to do several tasks. For example, I need to go to defend myself against humans. Okay, 2 legs predators, 5.56 does the job. But let's say I have to go hunt, and there are bigger games out there. In many states it's illegal to hunt with a 5.56. It's not big enough. So what I would suggest, or at least to start to think about a cartridge like a 308. Now, what I like about the 308 or 7.62 by 51 NATO is the fact that for me it's the cartridge that does it all. When it comes down to stopping an opponent, not only I have more penetration and more power, but also I can outreach normally the opponent, especially if you're trained. With a regular average iron sight, with the 308, 500 yards, it's a normal task. With the 5.56, can start to become much more difficult, especially the final ballistic, dynamic when I hit the target is going to be different. Of course, the windage is going to be different too. But the bottom line, I like 308. Now, do you have any 308 rifle used for, let's say, not for hunting, but for the purpose of self-defense?
Sure.
What is your favorite 308 rifle?
My go-to is the Fabrique Nationale FAL.
Wow, that's a beautiful.
I'm also a fan of the PTR platforms because, it's tried and proven from, initially, it was a Setme, and then HK ended up taking that design. But I don't have any problems with some of the more modern ones, like a POF. And there's several companies out now that are making very affordable 308s. Palmetto State Armory comes to mind, where they're now doing AR type 308s, where you're now starting to talk about the low 1000s, which is usually unheard of for a 308 platform. So there's a lot of good stuff that's out there. But you're absolutely right. That 308 round is a go-to round. And I tell you, not only can you reach out and touch someone with that round much better than a lighter 55 or 62 grain 5.56 or, 223, it's also a flatter shooting trajectory. Because people will say, well, what about the 7.62 by 3.9? Sure, that has mass, but you have less trajectory because of the amount of oomph behind that round in a AK or an SK or, any of the Soviet bloc type platforms that shoot that round. But I tell you, when it comes to personal defense, that 308 round easily turns cover into concealment.
Yeah, it's the round for me, and I said, guys, if you can have a modern war rifle, please go for it. As I said, there is a caliber for every situation. I wish you had at least one rifle in 5.56, and you had also a rifle in 7.62 by 39. But the 308, it's a must in my opinion. What I wanted to find, the problem is always the price, not just of the ammo, of course, of the platform. You said something, the first rifle you have, it's incredible rifle, the FAL. How much you pay for the rifle? I'm talking about probably a couple grand, maybe $1,500. How much did you pay for that?
Yeah, when I purchased mine, I did pay, after shipping and tax, it was probably right around $2,000 for it.
Okay.
And, I probably have $1,000 in spare parts for it.
That's
because it's smart to have, when you have a gun that's, a used gun, because I bought it used. It wasn't brand new. I was smart enough to learn the platform, learn the operating system, which most gun owners should be very aware of their operating system of the guns they choose to use.
Exactly.
And learn how to do some of your own armoring work, because guns are like mechanical devices like a car. You have to learn how to maintain them.
Exactly.
If you want to count on them.
Jay, but the point is that specific 308, there are different options there. It's $2,000. Now, what I wanted to bring to you guys, listeners, an opportunity for the working man to buy a great 308 for the price of an AR-15 or less, and more important also, to have a solid platform, a rifle that really shoots, with magazines, because that's not the problem. For example, I like a lot, my favorite rifle is the M1A/M14, civilian version. But good magazines, at least, we're talking about $30, okay? And if you get, of course, the Springfield Armory, they want $50. So that's not the problem. Instead, the rifle I'm talking right now, as you mentioned before, is a PTR-91. Okay, it's a clone from the HK rifle. You can get the same magazines, first of all, for about $10. And I tell you also the price where to get them. And the rifle where to get it for just $849. Now, it's not a bad price. What we're talking about is solid rifle. I own one of these, okay? A PTR-91 308 in 16. I think I have the 18 inches barrel. But the bottom line is, you can get a rifle for a price of an AR that it's a very solid platform. And let me show you this one right now. It's going on this week right now on cdnnsports.com. Charlie Delta November sports.com. And this is not my sponsor. I just do this because I really want you to get your rifle and fast. And you can go in this rifle sections, firearms. You go under the PTR, section. You can see different options. Right now, the one that is on super special, normally it's $1,049, is on special sale for $849. It's the PTR-91 308 16 inches, and he has a green stock, and it's amazing. I have one like this. I think for the money, it's probably one of the best 308 rifle. It's all mil spec. And by the way, I had the Setme from Century Arms. Nothing to compare. Nothing to compare. Sometimes, you can get lucky, but Setme, I had some problems to twist parts and make them work. This one, out of the box, it's great. I mean, any experience you have with your PTR, can you tell us?
I consider it a very reliable, robust gun. The operating system being a delayed roller blowback system is rock solid. And, it's one of those guns where you can have mud in the thing and it will still shoot. It is like a Glock, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to reliability, or an AK, because, again, it will shoot not just with dirty powder residue, it'll shoot with dirt in the thing because of the way they designed it. The one thing that you'll hear people complain about is, well, I can't reload my brass afterward because it does damage your brass. Well, here's the thing, guys. At the end of the day, if you burn through $300 worth of ammunition for the price of developing some skills to protect your family, I have to believe you consider your family members a lot more valuable than $300.
Exactly. Another thing, also speaking about ammo, yes, I have my magazines, or the good ones that they are loaded for real situations. I mean, hopefully never happen, but let's say my rig, they are brass. But normally I train with the brown bear or the silver bear, that they are Russian brand.
You shoot steel with it. Absolutely.
Steel, it's like paper. I mean, seriously, it's so great. I can still get, and I tell you guys, I will share with you also where to get the best ammo for the prices. You can still go to cheaperthandirt.com and look at the Russian section. They have the 308 under the brown bear. And you can get, let's say, 308 rounds steel case for like $8.50 for a box of 20, or $8.90. That's not bad. But now I tell you another place where I like to get my 308 ammo, and they're exactly 7.62 by 51 NATO. I like that. It's a Walmart, believe it or not. They're for $9.50. This new brand, it's from Turkey, that is called ZQ1. I think something like that. I talked about that last time. And you can get it for less than $10, all brass, brand new stuff, for almost like more than $1 than normally you would get steel. And they are not 308. These are 7.62 by 51. That's a military NATO standard. So even if you have some rifles, like, for example, I said in the past, the infield, especially the Indian version, that they really need to be sure about the spacing, you must have a 760 by 51 for $10. When you go to Walmart and you shop for some other things that normally, put an extra $10 and get a box of 308 for you. ZQ1, that was the brand. I think that was that one. Are you familiar with that brand?
Say that again, the brand?
The brand is Z at zebra, Q1.
Oh, yes, that's the one that's made, I think, isn't it made in Turkey?
Yes, in Turkey, and they're really good. Finally I was able to try it out.
Yeah, they're great rounds.
Yes.
Very, very affordable rounds. And absolutely.
And they're all brass, and the beautiful thing, it's almost just $1 more than the Russian stuff. Don't get me wrong, they work fine. The Brown Bear, I've been working with that. I like them. But when they used to be $5, $6, were great. Now they're going to start to go about $8.50. For $1 more, you can get this real brass stuff. So, guys, today another solution. Okay, not only we got the first part of the hour with Jay to try to put together for my listeners, for you guys, a great opportunity of training for a very affordable price, and also we have a chance to hopefully meet together. So go to the website, lovegunsfreedom.com, the next couple of days, and you will see the information there. More important, I would like to have every one of you with a rifle. I don't care which rifle. By the end of the day, if you had to pick one only, I invite you to consider at least a battlefield rifle, center fire, of course. We're talking about 7.62 by 51 or 308, and I give you today a great opportunity. You don't need to be rich. You need just to go to anywhere you find it. But I found a place that I don't think is cheaper than that. For a brand new one, PTR 91 for $849, no sale tax. They ship directly to your FFL dealer. So right there, I think it's a great deal. And get ammo and get magazines. At the same CDNN, you can get this magazines for like $9.99. Original brand HK. Okay, used but in great shape. I got a few myself. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say. Jay, you know what? We passed an hour. It went so fast, man. I want to thank you, Jay, from the bottom of my heart for all you do as a human being, as an American, to this community, to us as gun owners, and indirectly you do it to the nation, because this nation can stay free only when we have educated, law-abiding people ready to have the skills. First of all, the first skill is knowledge, and second skill, of course, is knowledge how to use a weapon. Thank you very much, Jay. I appreciate your help.
Not a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Don't go away. You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom. Final hour. We have now love. Don't go away, but don't forget, if you want to support this show, go to www.zanna.us. You can download any of my songs for just 99 cents, and doing so, you will support the show. Thank you very much.
Have you ever met someone on an online dating site and thought, wow, this guy is perfect for me, or she is simply amazing, only to find out they were hiding a deep, dark secret? They plan to vote for Hillary. FreedomLovers.us was created for singles who want to exchange ideas and a love for freedom. People who are looking for solutions to create and defend freedom in the real world, and at the same time, getting that once-in-a-lifetime chance to find their true soulmate. Whether you are interested in meeting your soulmate, making new friends, networking, or hanging out with that like-minded liberty lover, visit FreedomLovers.us. It's the first free dating site and community. So patriots, don't waste your time with other dating sites. FreedomLovers.us is the place where like-minded singles really click.
Look at Zanna, you're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom, final hour, the hour about love. Today I will have, first of all, a little bit of recipe, I didn't do it in a while, so the last part of this hour, I will share again how to make bread from scratch. Why? Because my friend Ronald from California asked me for, and I'll do it again. Meanwhile, today is the hour about love. I wanted to share with you a different type of love. Before we go into it, this is going to be something more personal. It's about my love. The love for this country. The love for America. And why? And why also I say things I say, and why I'm here. So I'll go there pretty soon. Before I go there, I would like to remind you that if you're a single or if you are just somebody who's looking for friends, you don't need to just look for a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a wife or a husband. You want to just look for like-minded people. There is a place that I created, and it's free, 100% free, at least for you. Because this is not like the government say, oh, it's free. Somebody else always has to pay. That's the reality. So this is really free because I'm paying. It's my act of love. I share it with you. I created it, put it together. It's an idea. It's called freedomlovers.us, where people, like-minded people, you know what type of people. If you listen to the show, you're one of us. I know many of you listen to the show and they hate the gut out of me. That's fine. If you're a socialist, if you're some sort of, bloodsucker leech who loves government and, can't wait to jump on our back and suck the blood out of us, stay the hell away, please, okay? But if you're an individual who believes in individual rights, individual property, and you're a human being, no government or no human being should force you or coerce you to do anything against your will, unless you're doing something that is infringing other people's rights. That's the basic philosophy. You're welcome. You're my brother, you're my sister. I don't care which religion you are, I don't care where you're from, or like that, we are together, united for freedom. So, you can go to www.freedomlovers.us. You can create an account, 100% free. Hopefully you can find the person you like, person you love, or even just exchange idea, trade, do whatever you want. There are free message boards, free bulletin boards, and free instant messenger, and a lot of beautiful things. That's enough. Now let's talk about serious stuff. Normally in this show, in this hour, I talk about different aspects of love. And today I want to talk about something very personal. Why I love America. And what is exactly America for me? As I said, I grew up in Italy. I grew up exactly in Anzio, a little town outside Rome. I was born in Rome. But Anzio was the place of my childhood where I learned history. I saw the places where many American soldiers died on the beach of Anzio. And so also Allied soldiers. There were also Canadians, also British. But, mostly was the American people that I had a chance to hear the stories from my grandfather. That was dead now, by the way. And the point is, I was shocked. First of all, it's almost call it destiny. If it wasn't for many of these American soldiers who sacrificed everything they had at the time, some of them, they never made it back home. My family would never probably be alive, okay? And I would have been here to be a pain in the butt for you, so happy for you. The point is, I grew up with the respect and admiration of people who really in that point was the last official constitutional war. And they gave everything they had to try to give us a chance as a nation to restart, get away from fascism, get away from Nazism, and try to have a sort of freedom. The point is I grew up with that inspiration, and I started to learn about America. And it wasn't America about being some sort of, a rock star or become successful with money. No, it wasn't about that. For me, it was the most important thing that I learned was when in high school, I was able to put my hands on the Declaration of Independence and, of course, also the Bill of Rights, something that I never had a chance to see in my life. Not because I was ignorant. Of course, we are ignorant at some level. We always learn. But the point is because in Europe, never really had the Declaration of Independence. We never really had a Bill of Rights. I'll give you an example. In Italy, even they call it Republic. It's not Republic. It's technically, it's still the same system that never changed since the time of kings and lords. Now they want to call it that. It's the democracy. That means, they can brainwash 51% of the mobs to then constrain you to do whatever you need to do. But you don't have any inalienable rights. For example, freedom of speech doesn't exist in Italy. And I can tell you for many facts. First of all, I was there. But for example, when I used to have a music magazine, I needed to go to the court, judicial system, think about it, to ask for a permit, to have a special director for my magazine, to have a special permit, the same permit that was released during the time of the kings, and also, of course, came back with Mussolini. So the point is, think about it, to exercise your First Amendment that doesn't exist in Italy, you have to ask for a permit. So you have no right. It's a privilege. And so many other things, like, for example, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The right of the people, not of the government. So anyway, many things. For me, that was the illumination. Say, you know what? I don't want to be a subject anymore. I don't want to be more feel like this government. It is like some sort of a god. The state is God. No. We are individuals. We have rights, inalienables. This government doesn't give me any rights. I have rights as a human being, as an American. So for me, it was the beginning of my journey. But before I came here, I wanted to be sure that I was able to visit the rest of the world. So I spent many years, at least my first, let's say, between 18 and till 28, going around the world, the first 10 years of my youth, going around the world, being able to visit many places. And I realized that, you know what, no matter you cut it, no matter with all the imperfections this country may have, because after all, it's still made by humans, don't get me wrong. But this experiment called the Republic of these United States of America, even with all the imperfections, was never attempted before. That's a fact. And that's the proof also, because you realize that all this freedom that was created at the beginning, it was the main manure for, let's say, prosperity. And people say, oh, here we go. The slaves, guess what? There were slaves everywhere. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't perfect. We know that there was part of this country, unfortunately, was still based on economy on this terrible travesty called slavery. But don't just single out America. America at least was the first experiment. They were trying to make it at least happen on paper. That all humans were created equals. Then, of course, they had to create this country, and unfortunately, it was not going to happen if the South was not going to join, and the South was not going to join unless they still have their slaves. But that's another story. If you want to think that America was the only evil about black slavery, guess what? They were the British before, and they had the Irish slaves. Nobody wants to talk about that. And there are still slaves now in Arab countries, right now, 2015. So it is not just America. The point is America at least attempted the best human experiment in the last 5,000 years of history, of civilization, where the government, it is not to destroy the rights of the people, but supposed to be to defend the rights of the people. That's what it used to be. Now, I came here in 1998. Okay, I took an oath, by the way, when I came here. And I was very proud, and I'm very proud of my oath. The same oath that now Obama wants to, he did change. My oath was very simple. I am here as a naturalized American, and I'm here to defend this republic against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And why I'm doing this show, it's one of the reasons why. Because I really believe this country, this republic, is under attack. Maybe not yet by tanks and people in, red shirts or, like, let's say, coming from another country. No. The infiltrators, the enemies, is inside. We've been infiltrated. And this didn't happen just with Obama, okay? People start to say, oh, it's Obama. No. Obama is just the final stage, is the final pawn of this long chess game. The country that we knew is gone. Now, do I hate America? No. I love America more than ever. I love America and I want to defend it. I want to take it back. I don't care if it's just myself or thousands of us or millions of us. I have the duty as an individual to do everything I can. The first thing I can do right now here is to speak with you, to tell you what we're facing and to unite together. And I hope, we don't fall for this game of this party game. They try to separate us. You try, oh, I'm a Democrat, oh, I'm a Republican. Guess what? That's why I'm no parties anymore. That's why I'm an independent. Don't look at me as a Republican. Don't look at me as a Democrat. Look at me as a human being that I have one basic thing I want to share with you. We should respect each other. And if you believe that theft is something bad, we should not use the government to steal from each other. That's the first thing. Because, I respect everything you want to do. If you want to put, you want to dress like a drag queen, that's fine. If you want to have, eat, pot for lunch and you want to have anal sex with a gay, I couldn't care less. Do it in the respect of others. You can do whatever you want. Seriously. Only thing I don't really respect, when you're trying to infringe on my rights for your agenda. For example, one thing really that I believe that it's happening, and it did happen, not just with Obama. Obama, of course, now is pushing it to the limits, and of course there are new politicians that they can wait to continue this plan, but this plan wasn't about them. Obama didn't come out with this plan. It was just a useful idiots Like, for example, Bernie Sanders gonna be a useful idiot, or a Hillary, and a Bush before them. Socialism, it is a gradual progression to complete tyranny. Because people don't think that socialism is so bad. Guess what? Yes, it's bad. It's a human castration. It's a castration of freedom. Socialism is when we have a majority of the people. That's why democracy is so dangerous. 51% of the people can use the coercion and the violence of the government to force and steal from others. That's what is socialism. And the beginning starts with regulations, with laws, legislation, so that it's going to look all like legal. After all, it's the law. Hey, you got to give 90% of what you own. Hey, you cannot run the business you want because there is a law. Start like that. It's bad enough, by the way. It's depressing. It's going to destroy creativity. You know, don't tell me how to run my business. Don't steal from me. I believe in charity. I don't believe in extortion, even from the government. So, but the bottom line is, it starts like that, and then it progresses, and then you start to see that they're going to take your guns, and then they're going to start to increment this level of harassment and violence. Once they have your guns, they will have everything you have, starting with your soul. So anyway, I became an American exactly in 2005, and I took this oath. And I hope all of you American people you were born here, people who care about this republic, you don't need to become a military to take this oath. You don't need to become a policeman or peace officer to defend this republic and its constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. You can take this oath with me right now together again. That's the bottom line. And we have to do it, my friends. Seriously. I mean, you do what you want, but I think we had the last moments, the last gasp of this republic. Time is so short. So, if you're a collectivist, a socialist, a fascist, anybody who wants to use force to steal and coerce others in your utopistic, nightmarish agenda, I tell you right now, you are my enemy. But, I still want to invite you on this show, I want you on my show. Because this show is about freedom of speech. And I like to use, freedom of speech and engage you in the arena of the ideas to expose you and to show you that you are a loser. I don't need violence. But let me tell you something. Don't mistake my civility, my politeness, my respect for you if you come on the show with me, for my weakness. Because let me tell you, you are my enemy. If you're a communist, if you're a socialist, if you're a neocon fascist, anybody who wants to use coercion on us, and you want to shut us down, by the way, we know that. You are my enemy. And as a last resort, I will use everything I have to defend this republic, my freedom, and my rights, and my fellow Americans. That's the bottom line. Now, very important, I'm trying to invite on my show, there is what he calls himself, it's a real communist guy, okay? And it's very interesting because on Facebook I found out this website that it is called, I think it's Croatian or Czechoslovakian or something like that. Anyway, it's from the East Europe. It's called Communist Party, okay? And I give it a like. I wanted to always give a like. I want to engage these people that they declare communist. And I said, by the way, would you like to be on my show? At the beginning, by the way, I was playing games. I played my video about Obama that I am now. It was sarcastic, of course, kind of, ironic or whatever you want to call it, satirical, okay, satirical, about me and Obama. I was going to become the new Obama follower, and I was going to join the the Communist Party. Almost there too. Anyway, so I was doing that, and this guy really believed it. It's Comunistica Revolution or whatever. And then he started to write things. He realized that I was not exactly what I was playing with. I'm not a communist, of course. So the guy, I started to say, by the way, first of all, why don't you come on my show? And I was going to ask him, first of all, what you're going to do with all the people that they're not going to become part of your agenda, that they want to become part of this communist agenda. What you going to do with them? And guess what? This guy, by the way, I don't think he's from this country. I think he's from Europe, the way he writes, and also his website, his Facebook page. I'll post a link, by the way, on today's show, lovegunsfreedom.com. he posted this little YouTube that I think you will hear again about this former FBI agent that used to infiltrate these communist cells, the weather underground, and he tells us exactly what is the plan for people like us, for like myself, who will not be able to be reprogrammed, to be re-educated in the new communist Marxist utopistic nightmare. It's called killing us all. So this guy very blatantly said, yeah, that's the plan we have. That's the plan. It's already been told. So, and that is funny. I said, listen, I really want you on the show. I really would like to have you on the show. And the important thing was that, and I said, by the way, on my show, I have freedom of speech. Anybody's welcome. And you can say that. I mean, it's true. I invited everybody here. I got people from that believe in Zionism, people who don't believe in Zionism, people that speak up against Muslims, people that speak up about everything. All I care that, we have FCC compliance, you don't cuss, and you don't use any violence. You can say everything. You can call me names if you want here, no problem. Just be sure that, you're going to get it back too, okay? And more important, we don't break the FCC rules. But bottom line is, listen to the answer of this guy, this communist, that says, when I said, by the way, we have freedom of speech on my show. Don't worry about it. After all, I got also Michael Weiser, that is a progressive, super progressive from Mojave County, running for office. I invited him twice, and I was very polite to him. So this communist says, this communistic revolution, first of all, he doesn't want to come on the show, he wants to come with his face, hidden. I said, don't worry about it. Not because I called you via Skype. I'm not going to record your face. I mean, after all, we're on the radio. So he was already afraid to put his face out, but that's okay. But he said the most important part says, seriously, problem is lack of censorship in USA. Free speech does not work for common people. And free speech is mostly used by high class to hide themselves and split or press into different groups. That's directly from the mouth of a communist. So you see, even this guy probably is a low-level idiot, but first of all, it proves the point. Not only when I said, what are we going to do, if people don't want to comply with your agenda, what you going to do? Oh, he sent me the video of Weather Underground informant say that we got to go to die in the camps, 25 million of us, and I'll play this right now. And then, that's not enough. Guess what? It tells us also pretty much that we don't need freedom of speech. In America, that's the problem. No, this is exactly the point. The problem is you. Because, if anyone out there, I want to try to be nice. Every one of you guys, think about it. You are like a progressive Democrat, okay? Or you are somebody that believes in this redistribution of wealth. What's wrong with you? Why you want to force other people to play your game? I respect you. If you want to create your own reality, that, let's say you want to create your own utopistic world, where few of you or many of you get together and say, what, that's the system we like to live. Your commune, call it whatever. Fine. Have fun. Enjoy it. But don't call me. I'm not going to be part of it. Because the moment I don't do that to you, I'm not here, people like me, we're not here to use you and force you to do what we want. I just say do what you want, but do not force me, do not use the coercion of the government to cut my wings, to suppress my freedom, to regulate me, to treat me like an animal, just like a cow to milk. Because that's disgusting. Disgusting. So, I have more respect. Let me tell you something, If you get this in the good ways, we're okay. But if you still believe that you have that right to use the government to legally and cowardly steal, and it's not just about the money part, it's about everything. It is not about money, it's about control. Obamacare is not about money, it's about control. Everything they do is not about just money, it's about controlling your lives. It's power. Where the state becomes God. No, government, you are not my God, okay? So let me tell you this. If you're one of these people, I want you on the show. And that's fine. We're going to have a good conversation and we can talk and maybe we can have some, illumination from God and maybe you can get it. All I ask is respecting each other. And one way to respect each other, we do not steal from each other. But the point is this. At the end of the day, you need people like us. That's the bottom line. To create your utopistic nightmare, you need people like us to steal from us, legally steal from us. So I have more respect for criminal robbers, okay, bank robbers, whatever, thieves, that they go out, maybe in the middle of the night, and they risk to get shot and probably to go to jail, but they do the dirty deeds on their own. And I know this sounds pretty strong. Yes, I am behind these words. I have more respect for thieves, professional criminals, than for you leeches that you hide behind the government to go out and suck the blood out of us. Simple as that. But you know what? That's why we are in America, and that's why there is a little difference. I was reminding to my communist friend from Facebook that I hope can make it on the show, maybe next week. This is not Europe. Europe, people never had the Second Amendment right. This is not Russia. It was never the Second Amendment right. Even now, of course, people have been brainwashed the last 50 years or more. Television and GMO food and fluoride and vaccines and all this stuff. And people, kind of lost a little bit their fiber. Guess what? Their DNA is still here. Who created this country, even was just the 5%. They didn't play along with tyranny. They risked and they fought and they died and they gave everything they had to be here. That's why I love this country. That's why I'm proud to be an American, And don't get me wrong. You hear me now on the show and you know what? Yes, I bitch, I complain. About what? About things that they are not America. Because if you tell me that I'm supposed to be silent when Obama and Congress passes the National Defense Authorization Act 2012 with this indefinite detention clause, that is pretty much against all the principles of every type of civilized world. We go back now before pre-Magna Carta. Don't play the political party crap on me. Because if you're a Democrat, you should be disgusted about any politicians, Democrat included. Like I was disgusted about Bush and Congress when, they like Nazis. They passed the Patriot Act. Why don't you grow up? Why don't you stop playing this, partisanship that is just used to divide us? I know, we have differences probably in economics. We need to fix the problem. We need to find out how to, maybe put some respect in each other's brain that you don't need to use my money and force me. I believe in charity. I do not believe in coercion. But all things can be changed if, first of all, we start to stop parties, but we use our brain to denounce evil, no matter where it's coming from. If you tell me that you still support Hillary because she's your lady, she's your girl, because she has a donkey on her ass, you are so sad. I feel sorry for you. Okay, like I feel sorry if you are supporting Jeb Bush. Don't get me wrong. Or if you support McCain. Stop. We're all going to be screwed. Don't you get that? So that's my point, my friends. But I love this country because there is something magic. There is something that was done not that long ago by regular people, regular women, regular men. Every color. Guess what? Even the black fought the Revolutionary War. The white. Everybody. They really wanted something different for themselves and for the next generation. They wanted to create an experiment where nobody has to bow down anymore to any other man. Where every man is supposed to be free. Where you're supposed to be free also to enjoy the results of your labor. Let's not forget, let's not get brainwashed. Even a wop like myself knows history. Before 1913, there was not income tax. We've been brainwashed the last 100 years. And let me tell you one more thing. One thing maybe we can fix this problem. Even I don't like socialism, but let's start first of all. Let's cut off all these international foreign aids. That means international socialism. We are getting money from our tax dollar to give it to other countries. I don't care if Israel, Palestine, Egypt, screw you. Go to China and ask for money yourself. Okay? Number one. Number two, let's take back control of our private central bank. That is not an American institution. It's a private central bank. They call it Federal Reserve. We know, we talk many times. It's as federal as the Federal Express. So every time we print a dollar, we don't print it. They print it. Now they don't print it anymore. It's just digital. But doesn't matter. Anytime the government, U.S. Treasury, needs the dollar, goes to this monstrosity called Federal Reserve, created this dollar out of thin air, and they ask us for the interest. And we pay this interest with the income tax. This is not my opinion. There was a investigation, congressional investigation during the Reagan administration that pretty much prove that every dollar that you pay in income tax, all it does, it goes to pay on the interest on the debt that we have with this Federal Reserve. So, as I said, maybe we can start to adjust a couple of things. If we don't go anymore, bombing the crap out of every country that doesn't comply with the New World Order, like Obama has been doing, like Bush has been doing, we don't need any more of these unconstitutional wars. Maybe a lot of monies and trillions we would be saved. And more important, if we take back control of our, treasury, let's not forget why President Jeff Kennedy was killed, at least one of the things he did a few days before he was killed. Think about it. This is for the Democrats, by the way, guys. Jeff Kennedy, he wasn't perfect, but compared to these Democrats, he was a Captain America, okay? This guy, he signed an executive order, 11110. Okay, 5 months before assassination, President John F. Kennedy issued his executive order that would give American currency back to the people by printing money based on a silver standard and take away the power of the Federal Reserve banking cartel. This is for sure one of the reasons why he was knocked down. Okay? So let's start to think about it. Then, when we get back control of our country and our currency, then we can start to maybe put this principle that we shouldn't force anybody. We shouldn't steal from anybody. We shouldn't. And guess what? When the income tax, before 1913, we didn't have income tax. Because the income tax doesn't really give anything to the government. It just pays the debt, the interest to this monstrosity. Simple as that. So let's start to think about that. Oh, you don't pay your fair share. Guys, wake up. Okay? Then we can discuss about more. But the point is, let's first take control back of our country. So, I'm here. I love America. I love it more than everything. I had the best years of my life in this country. I had the opportunity that I never could have in any other country in the world. And I said, where there is freedom. And, when I came in 1998, don't get me wrong, there was already another America. It changed a lot. But let me tell you, compared to now, 2015, I almost felt like another world. You can smell it. You can feel it in the air. If you're a business owner or whatever, you can start to see everything coming down. The Obamacare, the legislation, the regulations, anything from banking, credit card processors, everything. But more important now, the atmosphere, it's that you think you live in a free country, it's gone. There is not even anymore the illusion. Do you realize that I could disappear anytime, any moment? Just because I'm talking about things like this. Yeah, you have a freedom of speech. You're right, I have a freedom of speech. But also now the government thinks they have that type of freaking right, legally, to come and knock me down and completely arrest me. Completely arrest me. You understand that? Not even arrest me with due process. Just completely make me disappear. Go to read the National Defense Authorization Act 2012 to 2013. That's the bottom line. Think about it. This is scary. Not even in China they do that. So we're not living anymore in a free country, my friends. When a government can pretty much tell you that is forcing you to buy for an overpriced product, like Obamacare. Many of us lost everything they had, like the insurance we had before. And now they cannot afford this new plan. This is so sad. So sad. It breaks my heart. Breaks my heart of course, for us. We are living here right now. But more important, for who's coming after us. Because it did happen. It's happening under our watch. So I'm telling you, my friends, I want to be very honest. We have not much time. We have not much time. And all I can say that we got to do something. We got to do something. For me right now, I'm on the air just because of this. As I said many times, I don't have the time. I don't really need it. I don't care. I don't have ambition to become Howard Stern or some sort of a new talk radio host. I got my life. I want to be left alone. I write songs. I shoot guns. I eat pasta. I'm so simple. Seriously. I don't need anything. But now I realize that more than ever, we need everybody. I don't care if you read a newsletter. I don't care if you talk to your neighbors. I don't care if you talk to your family. I don't care if you go to your congressman office or if you write a letter to the editor. You got to stand up. This is the time we have. Okay? This is it. If we love America, we got to do everything we can right now. First of all, stop the politically correctness. They are killing us. They are murdering us. Okay? So, this is not time to play any more political correctness. Okay? Somebody's raping your daughter. What do you do? So, excuse me. Oh, I don't like your tone of voice. Screw you. You're raping this country. You politicians, bastards, you raped this country. You sold us out so long ago, but now you're really doing it in our face. It's time to stand up. Okay? That's all I'm saying. Now, I need to chill out. I'm going to have a glass of wine. And I'm going to go for the second part of the show. It's going to be about how to make bread. Okay? Just relax. Don't forget, if you want to support the show and allow me to be here on the air and on the internet to help me out, you can go to zanna.us. I'm not the government. I'm not pointing the gun at you. I'm not NPR who steal your tax dollar. I'm here because of your support. With just 99 cents, you can download any of my songs. Thank you very much. This is Luca Zanna, and you're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom. And screw the New World Order and all the fascists and communists out there.
I brought up the subject of what's going to happen after we take over the government. We become responsible then for administrating 250 million people. And there was no answers. No one had given any thought to economics. How are you going to clothe and feed these people? The only thing that I could get was that they expected that the Cubans and the North Vietnamese and the Chinese and the Russians would all want to occupy different portions of the United States. They also believed that their immediate responsibility would be to protect against what they called the counter-revolution. And they felt that this counter-revolution could best be guarded against by creating and establishing re-education centers in the Southwest, where we would take all the people who needed to be re-educated into the new way of thinking and teach them how things were going to be. I ask, well, what is going to happen to those people that we can't re-educate, that are die-hard capitalists? And the reply was that they'd have to be eliminated. And when I pursued this further, they estimated that they would have to eliminate 25 million people in these re-education centers. And when I say eliminate, I mean kill. 25 million people. I want you to imagine sitting in a room with 25 people, most of which have graduate degrees from Columbia and other well-known educational centers, and hear them figuring out the logistics for the elimination of 25 million people. And they were dead serious.
He's a songwriter, a poet, a rifleman,
I'm not afraid.
and a constitutional activist.
I'm not afraid.
Italian by birth,
I'm not afraid.
American by choice. Gianluca Zanna
I'm not afraid.
and his new CD, Love, Guns, and Freedom. 16 powerful songs on one CD from the heart of a patriot. For download or to order the CD, go to www.lovegunsfreedom.com. That's www.lovegunsfreedom.com. Lyrics for your mind, music for your heart. Gianluca Zanna's new CD, Love, Guns, and Freedom.
There we go, guys. You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom with Luca Zanna. This is the final hour about love. And I'm sure you can hear me, as you can hear me from the acoustic. I'm not in the studio right now, but I am in my kitchen. Back to a little bit of, in this hour, to recipes. And I've been requested by a friend, a listener, dear Ronald, from California, high desert, little bit how to make the bread. I already did this in the past, but maybe I wasn't clear enough. After all, I have an accent. And according to my friend Ronald, the bread experiment that he made wasn't really that great. So let me do another one together with you today. A very simple recipe to show you that in this hour, I talk about love, and, we talk about different things. One way that I think we should share our love to our fellow humans, family, friends, even enemies. You know what? Sometimes it's good to do that. I really believe that to show compassion to an enemy, get a piece of bread, and hopefully 5-6 days old, kind of hard, and you can throw it there. Just kidding. Anyway, the bottom line is, yes, I think one of the simplest way to share your love for your friends or family is just to make some bread, you know. Of course, you can buy bread if you want at the stores. But I tell you something, guys, you know, I am from Italy, and there are a lot of things I like in this country. I like America, a lot of things. But one thing that really I had a hard time to adapt coming from Italy is bread. Yes, there are some specialty stores out there that you can find good casareccio bread, or at least Italian style. But most of the breads that you buy out there is kind of almost pharmaceutical, I would say, you know. And don't get me wrong, I know there are people that they don't like gluten or they don't like wheat. That's fine, I understand. But once in a while, guys, you know what? If you don't appreciate a little bit of fresh bread with maybe some extra virgin olive oil and a glass of wine, my humble opinion, it's part of my being alive, and I enjoy these little simple things in life. So, I would like to share with you again how to make bread. But before I start to make bread, I need to get a glass of wine, because that really is part of the trick. Ronald, before you start to make bread, you gotta get a glass of red wine, especially if it's organic and good, just to put you in the mood. So let me start. Normally I drink like a truck driver. When it comes to wine, I don't really sip it. I just go for it. So, glass of wine is gone. That's not part of the ingredients, of course, but it's to put you in the right mood. Now, the idea is very simple. Bread doesn't take much, but all starts with good ingredients, okay? Because, as you know, as you can see, try to do an experiment. Go to one of these big grocery stores, and you see any type of basic bread, even the good quality bread that normally you consider like kind of pricey. And first of all, you gotta be sure that your bread is organic, okay? Your wheat is organic. Now, the problem that we're facing as humanity, that we have all these GMO seeds and vegetables and grains, they're terrible, guys, okay? I'm not trying here to preach you do what you want. If you want to eat rat poison, you're my guest, do what you want. But at least be conscious, you know what you're doing. Because if there is something that you don't know and they're trying to put it on you, I would like to inform you. GMO, it is not just a hippie trend, you know, some sort of fancy things. Unfortunately, something that is being proven by many universities, that these GMO ingredients, these genetically modified ingredients, they completely make you sick and sterile. There was just a result of several universities just a few weeks ago, experiments made on mice. After 6 months on GMO grains, they all became sterile, and they all had the cancers and tumors in their intestines. This is not me talking, this is official. So guys, let's start with the basic. Do a little research. Let's start first of all with the flour, okay? To make good bread, you need good flour. Now, there are different flours out there. Don't get me wrong, you can make bread of many different type of grains. Let's start with the basic, okay? Wheat flour. I know many of you may be incompatible with wheat, or they have a problem with gluten. Okay, this is now the way I'm making it. You do what you want, but I like wheat flour, okay? Now, what I want about this wheat flour must be unbleached, okay? And I want it, if it's possible, GMO-free, okay? Organic would be really important. So now, that's the first thing. We need good flour. Now I'll tell you exactly how many cups, okay, for the basic recipe. Now, then we need water. Believe it or not, if you have the crap water coming from the cities, most of these municipalities, I say all of them, they have these federal mandates, chlorination and sanitation. You're not even drinking water. You're getting like a pharmacy compound, okay? So get some filtered water that is good. Now, let's start to see how much water, how much flour. Okay, the two basic ingredients. I will invite you to get like a cup to measure, okay? So right now, for example, I start with exactly the flour. And this is just for a basic now loaf, okay? But you can then adjust it. I don't even really count anymore. Anyway, let's start with about 3 cups of flour, okay? And I put this in a bowl, in a big glass bowl, okay? My grandmother used to put that on the spianatoia, on some sort of a stone-made table, okay? I like to make it simple, less messy. So I get 3 cups of flour in this big ball, B-O-W-L, okay? Not a ball to kick as a football, okay? Just to be sure we got it down right. They always say, what are you doing? Put flour in the bowl? No, but in the bowl. Anyway, I got it right. Anyway, so 3 cups of flour. Number 1, very simple, okay? That's simple as even a Democrat, Obamanoid, can do that. And by the way, I'm not trying to make fun of Democrats because there are a lot of good Democrats out there. But if you're a Democrat and you still support Obama, I'm sorry, you need some medications at this point. But look at how nice I am. I'm sharing this with you too. You know, even if you're an Obamanoid, I still love you. Is that nice? I still love you, and instead than give you a bread ready to go, instead than give you a fish, I teach you how to fish. I teach you how to make your own bread, okay? So I think I'm super nice. After all, this is the hour about love. 3 cups of flour in a glass bowl. Then we need water. How much water? Well, I don't even count anymore because the idea is to make enough water that you can work this flour in a dough. But just because I like to make it somehow simple, I say let's start with 3 cups of water. So we have 3 cups of flour and 3 cups of water. As I told you, get good water. If you live in a city, filter the water, okay? So here we go. 3 cups of water. Now, look how simple it is. Flour and water. Man. The magic ingredient, okay? What do we need? Yeast, okay? Otherwise, this bread is not going to rise. It's going to stay flat. We don't want that. There are many types of yeast out there. And you can get dry yeast or you can get fresh yeast, okay? In Italy, I like a lot the fresh yeast. They're like little cubes. Now I use, for example, this Red Star active dry yeast that you can find in any grocery store. Just to be sure, try to get one that is aluminum free, okay? So this one is pretty much does the job. Aluminum free, okay? Now, remember, every yeast works in a different way, okay? So you don't need to do too much yeast, because otherwise you're going to have, also the flavor is going to be different, but you need enough to make it grow. I would say for 3 cups of flour, I would say, use like at least 1 tablespoon of yeast, and that would be plenty, okay? 1 tablespoon of yeast, okay? More than plenty. Here we go. Here we go. Not too big, eh? You don't want to overdo it. Just enough. So we have the flour, we have the yeast. By the way, I'm not using any bread machine. I'm just using a wood spoon, okay? Now, final ingredient we need to put here. There are 2 more ingredients. Sea salt. Okay, you want like a teaspoon of sea salt in this mix. Okay, even less, okay? Little sea salt. And you want at least like 1 tablespoon of oil. This is not something you have to do, but extra virgin olive oil make the dough smoother and softer, okay? It gives extra flavor. Normally it's good for pizza, so I don't overdo it. This is something my little extra, but you don't really need it, okay? Bottom line, we have flour, salt, yeast, and water. Now we start to get it with a spoon, with a big spoon. We start to mix very normally the water with the flour. Start to mix it till all this start to look like it is some sort of homogeneous. You will notice probably that maybe there is not enough water. No problem. You add little water, but wait before you add. Be sure that you start to see that this is really dry. So normally for 3 cups of flour, we may need about 4 cups of water. Okay? Sometimes little flour, they do work in different way. But that's an average rule. There is no law here. You make the laws, okay? After all, this is still our kitchen, okay? So anyway, so now let's say with 4 cups of water, 3 cups of flour, they're working pretty well. I don't need to spend too much time. All I want to be sure that this flour get mixed with the water and with the yeast and the salt all together. Guess what? I'm almost done. This is so simple. Even an Obamanoid can do this. Can you believe that? And even if you like Hillary, I'll share this bread with you too. You don't deserve it because you're too dumb and stupid, but you know what? After all, you're a human being, I guess, and you deserve bread. So I give you some great recipe of bread, even if you like Hillary. And don't get me wrong, if you like Jeff Bush, you don't deserve anything, but I'll do it for you too, okay? If you're so dumb you still vote for a Bush, you should just eat, you know what, stale bread, okay? With mushroom on top. Another good mushroom, the mold. That's what you get. Anyway, so guess what? This is done. Now, normally what I would do, if I wasn't holding right now the microphone, I like the touch of the dough on my hands. So I put some flour on my hands, and I start to work the dough with my hands till it gets smooth. But, you know, after all, I'm one-man band here, and I'm doing the dough while I'm holding the microphone, so I don't want to make a mess with my hands, and then I will damage my expensive recorder. So what I'll do, I'm using just the tablespoon, the wood spoon. I'm mixing this dough, and I put a little bit of flour on top. I create almost like a ball, okay? A ball, not a ball, a ball. So, this is done. Now, what I need to do is to put this dough in this glass bowl with a rag on top, okay? Why? Because it keeps warm. And speaking about temperature, I want to be sure that the room temperature, it is not too cold. That means we're going to stay, you know, if you are in California, probably you're okay. In Arizona, too. But let's say you live in some part of North America or other parts, like when it gets cold, unless you have, you know, try to keep your room temperature not below 70 degrees, okay? Otherwise, it's going to have little trouble to this rice. Now, what I do normally, I put in an oven, without, of course, turning it on, just to keep it some sort of in an environment that is controlled. Now, this is very important, because at this point, now it's night, and tomorrow morning, I'll come back, and I'll check my dough. And if the yeast is doing its job, and I did the right mix, it's going to at least double, the sides. At that point, when you see that this is racing, very simple. It means you get the dough for bread. Then you get like a beautiful, depends on the way you want to cook it. There are different ways. You know, you can give it the shape you want. You can put it, like, for example, in special metal containers that they, like pots, like some sort of, you can get the shape of that. I like it normally even just put it on a flat stone, that normally I cook pizza, and I created the typical shape of a loaf of bread, okay? It's very important. The last touch I do, first of all, I recreated the sides the way I want it. I use some extra flour on my hands, and I sprinkle some flour on top. That creates the crust, okay? And I also sprinkle some salt on top of the loaf. That gives the extra flavor. I want to leave it for another hour. After I finish and finalize the final shape of the dough, I leave it in the oven, okay? Stay there, ready to go. Then it's very important, this extra hour gives the opportunity to the yeast to regrow somehow, okay? It's like almost the second levitation, okay? The second time that it's going to be much more softer. Now, at that point, when we see that this is pretty much now ready for the sides we want, remember, it's going to also grow more when we put it in the oven with the heat. What we do, we remove this stone or whatever you have container with the bread for outside for a moment, and you pre-warm the temperature for your oven. How much? How many degrees? Well, you don't want to overdo it, but you want to cook it. So let's put it in this way. Normally, what I would like to do, I would like to go at least 450 degrees. Okay, that's the bottom line. And so you pre-warm when it's really 450 or 475. Then you put inside the loaf of bread. Now, how long? You will see. You will see, because you don't want to get this bread brown. That means black. You don't even want to white. You want to be almost gold, okay, like a golden. So that's so simple. Even everybody can do that, okay? Look, I did this with one hand. No expensive bread machine. On one hand, I'm holding the microphone. On the other hand, I was making the bread for you. It takes me like 5 minutes. And tomorrow, when I be ready to put it out in the oven, it's going to be an extra few minutes to prep it up. Leave it another hour, as I said, before I put it in the oven. Simple as that. So this was the recipe of the day, or at least the simple recipe of the day, how to make bread from home. And why it's so beautiful to make bread? For many reasons. First of all, bread, I really like it. As I said, glass of wine, little bread, fresh bread, homemade, little extra virgin olive oil and salt. I feel like a king, seriously. I know some kind of, for many of you, maybe say, wow, this guy's really desperate. No, I'm not desperate. I really believe that simple things make life beautiful. Sometimes we try to reach for the fancy or the difficult things, that we have our happiness just in our home. Everybody can afford a little piece of bread made with fun, maybe with your wife or with your children. Think how much fun you may have. Then also, what? I understand that there is a lot of theories now and also science that probably, wheat is not that good for your blood type, and that's fine. I understand. Myself too, I realize that sometimes too much wheat is not the greatest thing. But guess what? Think how many things you can cut that they're really damaging to your health. All this fast food, all the garbage, all this processed food. A piece of bread from your home with the right ingredients, with good sea salt and good oil and good wheat, GMO-free. You know what? You're not going to die. Honestly, at the end of the day, we're going to die anyway, so at least enjoy a little bit. And more important, also think, a lot of you guys, you work very hard for your money. We all work very hard here. I believe so. Regardless what the government think. And we got to look also at these little things. You go out, you want to get some organic bread, and you know that at least it's going to be $4 for a little loaf made, in plastic, okay? Guess what? You can make this bread for probably less than $1, okay? The same, and it's fun. As I said, it's an opportunity to stay together with your family and enjoy some family time. Now, that was pretty much for now the little recipe of the week. And I promise I will be back, because I had a lot of friends on the air, a lot of listeners. They told me, they sent me an email, hey, last few weeks you didn't play any more the recipes. What's going on? I know, guys, we've been overwhelmed with all this news, all these facts that sometimes, it's hard to control and balance what we're doing here. We are struggling. We are facing this global tyranny. We are facing this evil. At the same time, we try to keep part of our humanity, trying to, just enjoy life and balance everything. And it's tough. We are human beings after all. But it's good to do that. It's good to take a break. That's why the show is called Love, Guns, and Freedom. That's why this is the hour about love, that I'm trying to talk about for a moment, a little bit of different things, so we don't get completely, taken over by all this struggle and, intensity of all the things that we are facing, all the topics that we are touching, and the different, very important things that we are talking about, like, freedom, like New World Order, like the vaccines, like, this corruption, this Illuminati, whatever you want to call them. This is happening. It's all connected. The chemtrails. It's all connected. But at the same time, you know what? We go to sleep tonight, we enjoy life, and tomorrow is another day, and we will fight again for freedom. So, don't go away. Oh, maybe you can go away, but don't miss next week. God willing, I'll be back. And you've been listening. Love, Guns, and Freedom. Don't forget, my dear friends, if you want to support the show, it's very simple. I don't go out and beg for commercial sponsors. Once in a while they come, and I welcome them. But I know that when you have a sponsor, sometimes you cannot say everything you want. Instead, here on the show, you see, I allow anybody to come. I have, the people want to talk about Zionism. People want to talk about Muslim. People want to talk about communism. People want to talk about fascism. Anything goes. This is completely about freedom of speech. It's completely about, the rights of the individual. That's it. And I don't take bribes from big pharmas or any other companies. I'm the first one to admit when and if I'm wrong. At the same time, till then, when I know that I'm right, I'm the first one to scream really loud as I can, as loud as this microphone allows me to do. So you see, that's the way I want to keep this show independent and free. I need with your help. I need your help. And you can do it. Go to my website, or at least one of my different websites. For example, you can go to Zanna, ZANNA, ART.com. You can find different things. For example, there are also the new postcards and prints. And you can find my music section. You can get, for example, songs, all of my songs, for each song for 99 cents, okay? And many other things. So, I appreciate your help. All right, now I'm getting hungry. I think I need another glass of wine and probably some bread. So, as I said, God's willing, I'll be talking to you next Sunday. Thank you very much.